Not the best locker room pep talk I've heard, but not the worst.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
All right, here we go, OverDrive. Off and running, TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker up on TSN 2. Brian Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan.
What's going on?
What's going on?
Never in my life have I hated you two more, and I'll toss in James Duthie with the comments coming my way in public. I was running along Lakeshore this morning, and my earbud came out. The worst thing that could have happened to me, because I look over, picking it up, and there's a guy in his pajamas smoking in front of his grubby apartment. And he goes, "Did you play the red tees, O-Dog?" And then I got another one later in the day saying it was probably a scramble, and you counted. It's just now it's now I know. Man. Now I know what Hayes as a fraud is like, because it's just like.
Thank you. Welcome to my world. It never stops.
It's just like, no, it's just you just want to say to people, really, like, I think it's over. And then,
it's not.
But
man.
When you try to portray that, then they start hammering it even more because they know you hate it.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. You can't, if they give you a nickname or something, you can't go, "Hey, I don't like that," because people double down. But I will say this. You ended the show, and then I got blowback in the other way going, "You guys shortchanged him. He might have got 63." And I was like, you're right.
Well,
so in the end, it's a hell of a round, and we should give you credit instead of me sitting here with my popcorn.
It's a great round, regardless of what the number was, 63 or 64. It's one or the other. It's a phenomenal round. I still have no idea what Carlo Koliakova was trying to prove yesterday when he came on.
When he started explaining, I thought by the end of his explanation I would have had an 80.
Yeah, I thought you were going to shoot 82 by the end because he's like, wow, it was a par 72. It's like, God, it doesn't matter. Like, whatever, the amount of times he hit the ball, if it's a mini putt or a championship course at Oakmont, it doesn't matter. You struck the ball a certain amount of times.
Yeah.
But,
he was Joe Pesci. He was Joe Pesci from, what's that?
Yeah, my cousin Vinny.
He was Joe Pesci.
Yes.
Like, by the end, he was like the two Utes.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is this guy talking? I thought he was going to take his socks off and start counting with his toes and his fingers. Like, it was something to see. His head was about to blow off because I think he was confusing himself.
I think he started dancing around. Then he got into a place where he was like, I don't know where I am right now. And I'm talking about tees and pars. And I've been there, and I know what it's like. Yeah. But you're right about the tee. I ran into a mutual friend today, and he threw out, "Was O playing the whites?" You know, I'm like, I don't know. Like, they're everywhere.
I know. It's just like, you really had to say that on you and your 30 handicap and your garbage clubs and your brutal golf shoes, and you got to have a comment.
They're everywhere, man. Everywhere. It's all out there.
What frightens me is guys with 15 beers with them at the rink hole, and they're going to.
It's going to be everywhere. We need Chance tomorrow at the rink hole and on Thursday. Shot 64. Shot 64.
Yeah. Or just red tees. Red tees.
I think you can. I think you guys know who you can blame for all of this. Like, the catalyst of all this was a guy who won an award last week.
Canadian Screen Award winner, James Duthie. So, and Duffy's right in the middle.
I know,
of everything.
You guys just couldn't have just let it. You could have let it sleep, and it would just be, hey, great round. But now it's a sideshow.
Couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. You know what I was thinking off the gate? We should have kept playing Major League because the Jays didn't play last night.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Right? Why wouldn't you come in with it today? They're off a 5-gamer, right?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't play yesterday, so yes, they didn't win, but they also didn't lose. They're still on a 5-game winning streak. And you got the Phillies in town. We've got dome open weather finally. Like, it's muggy and hot in Toronto, man. It's a beautiful thing.
How crazy is that? How it went from I thought it was going to snow. Like, I had 2 tee times up north, and I couldn't play because it was 6 degrees, felt like -2.
Yeah.
On the weekend, I was like, I can't play golf in this.
No, it was crazy, man. And like tomorrow, it's supposed to feel like 33 or 34, and you've like obviously we got the big fires in Manitoba and stuff, and it's really hazy and muggy and all that kind of stuff, like all throughout the country. And anyway, the dome's open. We got the Phillies in town. This is a real test. right? You play who you play. It doesn't – great. The Athletics stink. So what? They played them 4 times. They beat them 4 times. The Rangers aren't that good. Okay, fine. The Jays, they weren't that good, and they found a way to win those games. But when you get the Phillies rolling through, man, there's certain teams in pro sports, and this would be a good practice that maybe we should do at some point. Like, you look at what we've got in the Cup final, and it's not like this in the NBA Finals, where Oklahoma City and Indiana are very young teams. They have no finals experience. They don't have, like, grizzled veterans that you look at and think, man, that guy's been through the ringer. If anyone, maybe it's Pascal Siakam, actually, who might wear that title. But you look at the Phillies with, like, Bryce Harper and some of these guys that are going to roll through, and they just look like they mean business. The Panthers look like they mean business. It's I don't know. There's something about these major teams, these big brands, these teams with superstars that know how to win that just bring a different spark. And you can feel it with the Phillies in town. You can feel it with the Cup final starting tomorrow night.
It just makes you also, like, not to look at it in a negative light, but it makes you realize, like, teams that claim or think that they're on the rise, like, how far they actually are from their players performing and getting that kind of grit and edge to them and being that team. Like, I don't know. Like, how far do you think the Buffalo Sabres and Detroit Red Wings are from being like that and looking like that? It seems like it's just a long ways away.
I think, you make a great point, but I think the next step for those is what Ottawa took. Right? Like, Ottawa had a great season, like, up and down, but they made the playoffs. They had a good first round push back against the Leafs, but they lost. And I think and then now you start to assess, okay, how close are you? How far, Now, the big challenge for Ottawa and teams that lost in the first round are, don't take a step back. Don't let somebody catch you and leapfrog you next year, because that's, the Detroits and the Buffaloes and
well, that's just it,
like
Jamie.
that.
If you take a step back and somehow they're like, it would be more than reasonable to think that they could be in a battle for one of the last spots coming down the stretch. And if they miss, then it's like, where are you then?
Yeah,
I don't know. It just seems like you try to get the right players, and if you don't, it's almost like you're kind of screwed. Like, we're talking about grizzled vets. Like, how fortunate the Chicago Blackhawks, Pittsburgh Penguins, LA Kings were to get players that they had all these intangibles and capabilities as far as talent goes in their first 4 years in the league.
Yeah.
In the league.
Yeah. It's huge, man.
And what happened after they won, you started attracting people to add, the Hoses and
remember back in those
Hasek
days, guys, the philosophy was you got to try to pick one off when these guys are on their entry-level deals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's, it's the turnover now in today's game, especially with salaries and all that. And we talk, obviously, here in Toronto, how the Leafs are constructed. I don't know if this is, you could get onto a dynasty situation. You got to try and get one. Like now, where these guys are in their prime and heading on the backside of it. Like Tavares is on the backside now. We don't know if those guys are going to be back, but right now the players under contract in their wheelhouse of their prime, it's Matthews and Nylander, correct? I mean, and Nyes isn't even there yet. He's heading uphill type of thing. Like he's heading up the mountain, but is a damn good player.
That contract for Nyes has been fascinating when other guys around the league, and it's like, like people say, oh, Toronto's this and Toronto's that. It seems like the number around Toronto just gets inflated so much for whatever reason. I have no idea. I talked about a Dawson Mercer extension that was, I don't know, it was like 2 or 3 years at 4.5 or something like that. Similar stats, and everyone in Toronto, oh, you got to give Nyes 9. It's like, really? Why does it have to be 9?
Well, I mean, I can give you the answer as to why it always happens here, and it was because they allowed it to. They allowed it to, and they talked themselves into how tough it is. Like, the Leafs played the victim card for a long time, and they actually may have been the ones perpetuating behind the scenes how tough it is and how crazy it is, and they allowed everyone else to talk on their behalf. We always mention it. Well, why is Tkachuk talking about this? Why is Marchand? Why is McKinnon? Why are all these other players talking about how great all these players are? And the Leafs, the way that they operated, bought into that and thought it's so tough and we can't find anyone and no one's going to come up here and we better just pay these guys and forget it. Now, some of it was out of desperation because they were in a window and they thought they could win. And they thought, we can't mess around and throw something away here and allow some sort of a holdout to go into October or November and throw off the mojo of the team. So just forget it, get it done. But they decided to just treat Matthews like he was McDavid and treat Marner like he was Draisaitl and treat Nylander like he was Kucherov. They decided to do that. They didn't evaluate properly. They just said, forget it. We think those guys are going to be like that, so we're going to operate this way and just overpay, and allow every player to win everything. And this is what happens with the culture of the team. You talk about the DNA of the team.
Right.
A lot of it, if I'm a guy like Nyes, now I don't know him personally, and he says all the right things. I like this kid a lot, man.
Yeah.
I love the way he loves being a Maple Leaf. I love the way he plays. I love where his future is going, and I look forward to seeing it blossom here in Toronto. But he would not be in the wrong to look at the other guys who are the leaders and say, well, this is how they operate. This is how they negotiate.
Why wouldn't I?
They demand exactly.
Yeah.
And that's on the team to stop it. And I don't know if that was Shanahan. I have a sneaking suspicion it was. Maybe it was Dubas, maybe it was Lou, maybe it was Tree Living in some ways. But it's on Tree Living and Pelly and the Maple Leafs to stop that garbage, because it's been killing them for years. It's been killing them. You can't overpay. And it's not that these aren't great players. They're all great players.
Yeah.
It's not like it's some egregious overpay. It's not. But every $1 million counts. Every extra year counts. You know, like, we don't need to rip off the Band-Aid here and get into this, but I said it 2 weeks ago. The reality is, if they got Matthews to sign for 8 years at an entry level, he'd still have a few years left at 11.6. Now you got value with the cap going up. If you got Marner at an appropriate number for 8 years, he'd have 2 more years. Now, maybe you wouldn't want that. Maybe you'd want to move off it anyway. Willie, the same thing. Willie should be making $6.9 million. Guy sits in Sweden until November, and they still only give him 6 years? Don't force him to take 8 at that number. Like that, they just kept capitulating and doing it. And I'm with you, man. Like, you talk DNA change, look in the mirror. Treat Matthew Nyes the same way he would be treated in Jersey, in Utah, in Edmonton, everywhere else.
Yeah.
Because you're damaging yourself.
Yeah, those organizations you just mentioned, it's not $9 million.
No,
You know
it's
what I mean?
not.
Like,
He's a really good young player who got to play with great
I
players.
love the people have, like, since what happened with the Edmonton Oilers last year, people are really horned up to bring up the idea of an offer sheet. Like, as soon as it turned January, it was like, oh, watch out for this guy, offer sheet target number 1, and it's like, okay, here we go. And then the 8s and 9s and 10s, and it was like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, you can't, like, listen, if it's an 8-year deal, you're going to have to pay him more money. Clearly.
Absolutely.
It's a long-term deal.
Yep.
You got to pay him more than that. And I don't know what that number is. Maybe it's 7, maybe it's 8, and maybe that makes sense for both parties. But if it's a bridge, it's nowhere close to that number.
No, it's a smaller number, but he bets on him. But the team gives him a bump, and he makes good money.
Of course, good player.
And then he bets on himself and goes, let's kick the can down the road for 2 years. And if I'm a 40-goal scorer, the number looks different. If he's a 26-goal scorer, the number, he'll still get a bump, but it won't be as egregious. Like, that's the way I look at it. You still got to figure out, and I think there's a lot of people. He had a fantastic year.
Yep.
But keep in mind, he played on the top line, and he earned it, and played with Matthews and Marner. This is going to look different next year. The playmaker, if Marner doesn't return, which, controls his own future, they're going to have a different playmaker on that line. They're going to have somebody different, and they'll still have lots of success, but he might get 26 goals instead of 29, or he might get 38 or 40, who knows? Like,
internal improvement. They might need it. They might need that internal improvement.
I think you always need internal improvement. And if you don't, then you start looking at it and go, who can we move past here? Because that's, we're always focused on, and rightfully so, Marner and Tavares' contract, what's Nyes going to look like? What is Yarncroke going to improve internally, or is it just healthy? Is Max Domi going to have a bounce back year? You hope so, because he's on term. That's the thing I'm looking at, because those guys aren't making $700,000. It's $4 million. It's $3 million or $2.8 million. Like, every penny counts. And if those guys aren't going to have that internal improvement, you might have to look and go, I'm going to move past certain situations. Again, you're not turning over the whole team. I'm just trying to think out loud here. It's just not the two players we're constantly focusing on. You got to look at the whole group and see where you can improve. And that's the job for Brad Treliving.
That's true. And that's what every team does. I mean, look at Edmonton. There's an example where, yes, they got hit with Broberg and Holloway, getting basically swept from underneath them. And it was a brilliant play by St. Louis. They knew they had Edmonton backed into a corner because of their cap situation and how deep into the offseason it was. They offered it. The players were willing to take it, and they got the players. And they're ecstatic because they should be. They're two really good players on incredibly, I think, team-friendly contracts, even considering the scenario. But look where Edmonton is now. You think they care about that? Obviously, they probably love to have Holloway, even though he was hurt going into the playoffs. I'm sure they'd like to have Broberg. They didn't sit there and cry about it.
No,
they said, all right,
flinch.
you got us. Let's see what else we can do here.
And I was amongst many people that said, you know what? The young legs, the speed, it was a massive mistake, and it's going to be very costly. And it wasn't. So as of right now, it flip-flops. A year from now, we could be saying, they need those guys back. Whatever the situation.
For sure.
But as of right now, they just said, go play in St. Louis because we're not flinching, and we got the two best players, and we're going to make it work. The Edmonton Oilers, they're like the show pickers, man. They just pick off the scrap heap, and the guy has turned into magic. Kasperi Kapanen could barely get in the lineup, and he's he's out there wheeling around with Draisaitl, just different guy. Wallman, it's crazy.
I mean, speaks to how good Draisaitl is to make players better. That's the other thing.
That's big.
And the last thing too, you talked about those young players. I think Edmonton in their progression wanted a veteran team. They wanted, and I get they gave up speed, they gave up, and in the future, maybe a year from now or 2 years from now, they're certainly going to regret it. But they replaced them with veteran guys, and that's kind of what I think their mantra was. They are the oldest team in the league, but you heard Knobloch yesterday. He doesn't worry about them panicking in situations or being overwhelmed by it because these guys have been around the block 7 or 8 times, most of them. So I think that's kind of what their mantra was. Now they might regret it again. I don't think might. I think they will.
Listen, if they win, they won't.
Exactly.
If you win a Stanley Cup, you're not looking.
Don't answer.
Sure, it would be great to have those guys, maybe, but you're I don't have to explain a thing to anybody. If you win a Stanley Cup. All right, Dave Feschuk is in the house. He's coming in studio. We're going to get Fess in here, get his take on these Giannis, conversations. Can he see a fit here in Toronto? Can he make sense of it? We'll get into a number of different things, including McDavid, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I mean, those are the two faces of both respective leagues. They're both Southern Ontario guys, right? McDavid's from Newmarket, Shea's from Hamilton, and they're both the leaders of probably the two best players in each respective league. So we'll catch up with Dave. We'll get into that conversation. Jay's back in action tonight. Mike Johnson and Chris Johnston coming up live from the Cup final in Edmonton. They will join us. We got Mac Hughes, our boy Mac, for our annual meet and greet before the RBC Canadian Open. Mac will join us just after 6 o'clock. We're going to be up at TPC Toronto, Osprey Valley tomorrow, all throughout the rest of the week. We cannot wait to get up there. It's going to be great. We got our picks coming up tomorrow. We got a lot of things cooking as we get ready for the RBC Canadian Open. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We're up on YouTube Live on the TSN YouTube channel. Comments are flying. A lot of people saying 64 for the O-Dog. I love it. It looks good.
64.
And it feels good.
Just one day,
sounds good.
I know Scott Lawton's busy, but he sat and watched it. You know what? It's all on camera, so just
I understand that.
Get the footage.
I understand that.
I'm sick of talking about it.
Oh, wow.
There's Dave Feshuk. Did you hear the news?
Fess, you got to see what these idiots did. I go out there, and I am so dialed in, and I golf my ball, and all I did was roll in birdie putts. And I don't have a pencil. Carlo kept score for them. They kept score for us. There was a lady, I had no idea who she was. She was apparently keeping score for everyone. And then these guys start popping off about a wrong, like I didn't fill in this and I made bogey. Like they were making up imaginary things that happened. Now I got bums smoking on the street, yelling at me on the sidewalk, saying I play from the red tees.
Oh,
Yeah,
red tea.
That's inflammatory, man.
Well, look,
yeah.
O-Dog.
With pajamas on.
Look, man, I consider you Mr. 64. Congratulations.
Thanks,
no
Fess.
asterisk required. We've sorted out the math. It was painful listening to you guys sort out the math yesterday, but I'm glad you did.
Wasn't that incredible?
Wasn't that what? Fess, who was it? It was Carlo, and you could see his head. Like you could actually see smoke coming out of his ears. Correct?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You're right, dude. His hamster was R.I.P.
But
His grade 9 math
exactly
was coming into play, man.
Well, you guys were doing that math. I was doing the more important math. I was looking up Jeff O'Neill's birth date. I realized you and the Tiger, both 49, both coming up on Champions Tour eligibility.
Wow.
How about a little Q School run?
Let's get you,
what,
on
Fess?
the Champions
it's crazy.
Tour.
It's crazy you say that because all the way up, I was like watching Tiger, and I'm like, I've got like 12 goals, like around Christmas time, and because I was thinking in my head like this fantasy world where me and Tiger were like dominating. But Tiger went one way, and I kind of went the other, and it was just, it was two different stories, man.
It's all good. You guys will connect on the
I
Champions
was going to
Tour.
say,
That's
now
right.
you can play together.
Yeah, we'll get
after all
together.
these years.
That's right.
Good to see you, Fess. I'm guessing are you going to make a run up to the RBC Canadian Open this year? And so we debate this every year. I'm curious how you would answer this. If you're running the tournament, okay, it's your job, your Golf Canada, PGA Tour, whatever. I give you the option of Rory McIlroy winning or pick a Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
Which would you choose?
Pick a Canadian.
You're picking a Canadian?
Pick a Canadian. Yeah. I mean, Rory's won it enough. I mean,
Yeah.
and you know why he keeps coming back here? Because he's out at O-Dog's course today on a sponsors event.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure the price to get Rory out of bed and onto a private jet and out to the Weston Golf Club is not cheap.
I called out there last night, and I'm like, just to let you know, I have to come by in the morning to grab a few clubs I had re-gripped, and they're like, you're not coming here. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, this place is legit shut down everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was
Really?
I walked into the pro shop and grabbed it myself when no one was there because, like, when Rory's showing out, he shuts down the whole thing.
That's crazy, man.
Really?
Yeah.
Because he was at Oakmont yesterday.
Yeah.
I believe. So he's at the U.S. Open preparing for Oakmont. Today he flies in. He's at Weston. He may not see Osprey Valley until he gets there on Thursday.
He had the caddy out surveying the grounds
Sure.
up at TPC Toronto.
And he'll play the Pro-Am tomorrow.
Yeah.
So he'll play one of the 9s tomorrow.
But I wouldn't be shocked if the second 9 that he doesn't play, it's sight unseen. He just sees it for the first time.
That's what he's done in the past.
He's done that.
Yeah, he's done that in the past.
And
shows
won.
up
That is
and
a
wins.
joke, man.
That's how good this cat is. There's a part of me, like the patriot in me wants a Canadian, obviously. Now, I will say with Taylor winning 2 years ago, that was big. It was triumphant. It's happened now. We don't have to do the first time since 1964
But hey,
or whatever.
Rory is such a big star. It's almost like Rory and a Canadian winning are on par with
I
the fan
actually
base.
think it is because
Yeah.
I think, if you're this tournament, they've never played at Osprey Valley. He keeps saying, I'm coming back every single year. I'll always come back. If you win, you're definitely coming back.
Yes.
Right? And there's something about going up there and finding McIlroy. And it's amazing to see Connors and Hughes and Taylor and Pendrith and all these incredible Canadians that are going to be in the hunt. And I wouldn't be surprised if any of those guys won it. And it would be an incredible story. But the idea of having a ticket and showing up and saying, I was there to see the McElroy RBC Canadian Open.
Yeah.
Like, there's something about history and what he represents. He's almost larger than the game.
Oh, he is. No, he's by far the biggest celebrity on tour, right? Now that Tiger is not on tour. And so, for sure, you have to respect that. But look, a Canadian winning, I think, is also, this is a very patriotic moment in our country's history, right? Like, I think people could get behind that pretty easily.
Yes, they definitely could. Are you buying the Giannis and the Raptors doing a little dance thing? Like, where do you stand on this?
I mean, look, it's no secret that Masai Ujiri has coveted Giannis for a long time.
Right.
Like, he cleared the decks a handful of years ago, of salary cap space to try and get him, right? And didn't get him. He didn't leave Milwaukee at that particular moment. Giannis is going to leave Milwaukee at some point. Now, there are some people in Milwaukee saying it's not going to be this year.
Why? Why does he want to leave, period, Festchuck?
Well, he's said it out loud more than once in a bunch of interviews about how he's not going to be there forever. I mean, it's a very small town, right? This is a guy with all the money in the world and a big family and big ambitions and big curiosity. He's a man of the world. He's a global citizen. So the idea that he wouldn't want to live in a slightly bigger place than sleepy little Milwaukee, not that there's anything wrong with Milwaukee, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
Sounds like something I would say.
Hayes will piggyback off of that.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Nobody cares what anybody
Nobody
said,
cares about anything in Milwaukee.
Right. I mean, they do have Old Milwaukee beer there, which is,
Do they? Is that actually where it's from, or is that just a clever name like
I think
Boston
I think
Pizza?
there is a beer. No, I think there is a beer brewery there, and Jeffrey Dahmer was there.
Oh, that's what you want to be known for. Do you think he has a sign as you're driving into town? I
scary
hope not.
Stuff, man.
No
Scary
kidding.
Stuff.
No kidding.
They call them the Brewers for a reason, right? It is a beer. It's really,
like Miller's from there. Like, there's a bunch of great. And Bob Uecker, the great Bob Uecker. Milwaukee's a great place. We're not here to blast Milwaukee.
But whether or not it's going to happen this year, I mean, that's the big question, right? Like,
do you think everything would be on the table, Scotty Barnes included? Like, if why? I said that yesterday. How could it not be? We all love Scotty, but Giannis is 30. Now, I wouldn't put him on the table for Kevin Durant. That's a different story. I would not
maybe
do
a couple
that.
of years ago. But
a couple of years ago, sure. But he's older. He's 8. Durant, I don't know where his headspace is at either, man. I don't know if he really cares that much anymore. Giannis,
he's just getting older.
Yeah, I guess. I guess what I'm saying is I don't know if he can drive the bus. It's a separate conversation. But Giannis is 30 in his prime. He's still one of the 5 best players in the game.
Scotty Barnes is a poor man's Giannis.
Right.
Toronto should get the rich man's Giannis.
Yes.
That's Giannis.
Exactly. And I understand that Giannis may not want to come here without help, of course, but that's where Masai would really have to go to work. If you bring him in, you better make sure some of these kids you're developing, the ones you don't trade for him, actually pop. You better make sure Emmanuel quickly can play point the way that you've been planning on him playing the last year and a half. And you better keep Pirtle happy and healthy. Like, they're going to have to fill out a line.
Going to have to play a lot of basketball, which has not been his thing lately.
And score and do all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a lot that would go into it.
What do you think about Masai and this part of the recruiting? Apparently, there's a relationship with Giannis. And Masai itself is like him massaging this part of the organization and being involved with potentially Giannis. Is that a factor in him still being around, period, with what's happened in other organizations around MLSE?
Yeah, the presidents are being picked off, aren't they, around MLSE? And don't think Masai Ujiri hasn't noticed that, right? But it's an intriguing aspect to the idea that Masai might try and make a big swing this offseason, because you could make a case he'd be doing it for his job, because his deal runs through next season, period. That's the end of it. You would think a guy of that stature who's had that many outside offers over the years would want clarity on his situation going into the coming season. He wouldn't want to be a lame duck.
And I don't think Edward Rogers was thrilled with signing him in the beginning.
Well, he wasn't.
No, so he must have thought he might have been the first to go.
Exactly. So the idea that Rogers was not happy about the signing in the beginning, and Larry Tannenbaum ended up doing an end around, used the technicality in the NBA rulebook to sign Masai against Rogers' wishes, essentially, and against his legal objections, because Larry Tannenbaum was the governor of the team, and the governor had the right to do it, even though he was not the majority shareholder. For all those reasons, you have to believe that his days would be numbered unless Masai can pull Kawhi 2.0.
Well, and this is where the timing is actually fascinating, because Masai, in a way, may want it to be kicked down the can to next year, so he can say, well, he's not available now, but I know Giannis will be available next year, and you need me to get him.
Yeah.
So you better make sure I stick around, because if he's available now and he doesn't get Giannis, how is Masai going to stick around?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. If this is becoming a reality where MLSC is moving off presidents and Keith Pelly's going to have more power and it's going to be GM right into the president. Now, it might be different with the Raptors because they may look at it and say, Bobby Webster, you're out. Masai, you can stay. I don't know. They may decide to change the way it looks because at one point Masai was the GM, where that's not the case with Shanahan or Bill Manning in the past.
Very different jobs.
Different jobs and different roles. Like he is the architect of the team. Shanahan always tried to pretend as if he wasn't in on everything or pushed that. They would have known his role behind the scenes. But I would think if Giannis is available, and we know that in the next month, he's up for grabs. You got to put forth the best price. Giannis is going to have a say in that, clearly, where he's going to go. This is where, like, because we can talk about why the Raptors would want it. Why would Giannis want it? You know, like you mentioned, he's a man of, like, international prestige, and he's Greek, and there's a massive Greek community here. And that, I think, is a big part of it. And he's always kind of had this affinity, I think, for the city. But New York's pretty cool, too. Yeah. And the Knicks are better than the Raptors.
I don't think the Knicks have enough to get him.
No?
No, I don't think they've got.
Well, they fired Tibbs today. I mean, they're looking for a new coach. I mean, maybe they go get who?
The thing,
Budenholzer, and they bring the band back together in New York.
Danny Hurley, maybe.
Yeah,
UConn.
Yeah,
I mean, that's been the hot rumor. Who knows? But
don't you think though, if you're trading for Giannis, you want him to play with Barnes? You don't.
Ideally, Noodles, you're right.
You can't have, like, you're giving up a king's ransom to get him, and then now you've got to go and get players to play with him. Like, don't you think? You try and, it's futures or players, players that are around the periphery. Now, I know easier said than done, but it should be Giannis and Barnes and somebody else, that because now Giannis shows up, that might attract other free agents or other players that go, I'll go to Toronto for a year and try this out with this guy. Like, to me, that's, you go and get him. Now you might be a destination for players. Even if it's a one-year deal, I'll go play with this guy. Don't you think that's what, Masai should be aiming for?
Ideally. The question is, can it work in year one? I'm not convinced it can. Because, when Kawhi came up, that team was stacked. Like, they had Lowry. The rest of the league wasn't aware of, Norman Powell and Van Vliet and Siakam, but those guys were ready. They had Ibaka. Little did we know they were going to go out and get Marc Gasol, which was the perfect piece. Danny Green came with them. Like, that team was ready the second Kawhi arrived to be a very good team, and then post-trade deadline, they were a championship team. I don't see how that happens with Giannis joining this team, even if you keep Scotty Barnes. Like, even if you get rid of picks and kids and you got to move money around and, Barrett's going to have to go on other pieces, I don't know how you replicate what we saw in 2019.
It's a tougher sell. They're not ready-made. Right?
No, exactly.
There's so many question marks. Like, to your point, Quickly barely played enough last year to know what he really is. Brandon Ingram hasn't played to know what he is, and we all know he's been injury-prone. We know Jacoby Walter, young guy. What is he? Would you have to give him up, or could you ride with him? Obviously, R.J. Barrett is a possibility for being thrown into the trade, but could he stay behind and be a scorer for you? I don't know. You're right. There's way more question marks about this team and the kind of blockbuster deal you'd have to pull off to make it happen. But to the point we're all sort of started with, it's like, what other option does Masai Ujiri have in a lot of ways? Right? You could ride with this team and all those question marks, or you could ride with those question marks plus Giannis. Which maybe makes some of those question marks go away because he's just that good.
Big time. I mean, you put him on this team, they're obviously a playoff team immediately.
Oh, for sure.
And then possibly moving up the East significantly. Dave Feschuk in studio. When Tim Lewicki arrived, you could tell the mandate was, like, think big, go big, find superstars, bring them in here. Giannis would represent that clearly with the Raptors. I'm curious if you get the impression Keith Pelly is pushing a similar mandate, or is he because Lewicki was like superstars, we need brand ambassadors, and winning would be great. Like, he wanted to win, and they did win with Toronto FC. They won. The Raptors, they eventually won. What is your read on Pelly, now that he's about 15, 16 months on the job? His kind of infatuation with superstars like Giannis might represent. Also, like, maybe some possible free agents in the NHL next year. Like, could you see him having some sort of a voice in, hey, the Leafs, maybe you should keep some space in case that guy becomes available and you might want to sign him?
Look, I think Keith Pelly's a big swing guy. I think he's a little bit like Tim Lewicki. He's not the force of nature that Lewicki was, who kind of commanded headlines and everything he said and was a big presence around the MLSE headquarters and sort of just was a loud voice and a very authoritative voice. But, Pelle, he's a big idea guy with a lot of ambition. And I think, look, he knows who he works for, right? Like, he's got to carry out the marching orders of the ownership. And if the marching orders of the ownership is we're not happy not winning, what did he say about the Leafs? They got to be on a pathway to a Stanley Cup. I think there's a lot of disconcerted people around that ownership group when it comes to the Raptors. So, what does that mean for Messiah? It means you got to make something happen here. What you've done is not good enough. In my estimation, it's hard to imagine Edward Rogers would rubber stamp an extension for Masai Ujiri with the team as it sits right now. Would he rubber stamp one if he goes out and pulls off the blockbuster deal of the NBA summer and transforms this team into something a lot more exciting? That's something. That
seems like a pretty good pitch.
It seems like a pretty good way to, at least take your chances and roll the dice and hope they come out in your favor.
Chuck, do you think if SGA was American that he would have more sizzle? Because it seems like he's the Canadian guy. He's the MVP. He's wheeled his team into the finals with somewhat ease. Like, how come it's not popping? It's like, if he was American, would it be different?
I think if he was more about me, if he was more about SGA, in the way that we've seen, a lot of these kind of narcissistic sort of, self-obsessed guys who've been, complete assassins in the league, have been about themselves. LeBron's always about LeBron and LeBron's legacy, and he's not LeBron. Don't get me wrong. I'm not comparing him, but
he's pretty damn good.
But he's also a very low-key superstar, right? Who defers credit to his teammates and defers credit to everybody but himself more often than not, and doesn't really, kind of engage in the kind of NBA drama that we're used to, right? Like he's not.
You never hear any nonsense out of him.
Yeah, he's not saying kind of crazy things about how he's the man, or it's his team, or this is his league now, or he's the face of the league. You never hear that out of him, and that's just who he is. He's a humble guy from Hamilton, man. He's not a guy that's going to do that. Don't expect it, and it's not going to change, right? But to me, like, hey, man, I watch a lot of American ESPN, and they're talking about him a lot, Doc. Don't get it wrong. Like, they are talking about him a lot. It's just not like maybe commanding headlines in the way the previous superstars on finals teams have had them.
I think it's also the nature of that market in the States. Like Oklahoma City is, I believe, the smallest market in the league, if not real close to it. But I think it's actually the perfect finals for him to be the face of it because they're playing the Pacers. And Halliburton clearly is a stud, and he's playing great, and he's going to get a lot of buzz. But if they met the Knicks, it would have been all New York all the time down there. Oh. Like, it would have been all Jalen Brunson, all about New York, all about the Knicks, all about the Garden. And now it's not, because it's two small market teams without any championship, pedigree or history. It actually is a perfect platform, I think, for Shea to wrap up, which one of the great seasons we've ever seen. Oh. I mean, at regular season MVP, if he gets the finals MVP, which I anticipate he will if they win, championship, he's 26 years old. They've what do they have, 62, 63 wins this year?
It's incredible.
And they haven't lost. They swept in the first round. Denver pushed them to 7. They won Game 7 by like 30, and then they just won the last round in 5. I wouldn't be shocked if they beat the Pacers in 5 or less. Like, it's an all-time great season.
Yeah, to be like minus 700 favorites in an NBA final.
Crazy.
Doesn't happen that often.
And he's the guy. Like, he's the man on that team.
Like, I guess some of those Kobe Shaq teams were like minus 2,000, back in the early 2000s. And there've been other teams that have been heavy favorites. But yeah, it's kind of, and it's come on quick, right? Like, this team has gone, they're the youngest team in the NBA.
Right.
They've kind of gone from being what if to we are very quickly.
And they're here to stay, I think, too, for sure.
And the NBA, don't you think the NBA needs it? Because the NBA, their viewership was down. I thought their product stunk this year. Like, when you look at it, like, you watch a lot of the games, load management, guys not trying. Like, it was just like there was bad storyline after bad storyline. Like, don't you think the NBA needs, some positivity? Everyone pays attention in the finals because they actually try.
Yeah.
Where, in the other games, it's mail it in and, hey, we're not sure who's playing tonight. Like, I think the NBA really struggled this year from a viewership standpoint and people getting excited about the league.
Well, they got hit. Now, part of it, I think, is, again, the brands and, like, where LeBron is in his career, Durant, all those guys.
Steph.
Yeah, Steph, exactly. Like, they came on down the stretch, but Golden State didn't have a great start. And now you've got Oklahoma City and Indiana Yet, if you're a pure basketball fan, it could be a great series. And you got young players and stars. And I don't think either of these teams are going anywhere. And like Pascal Siakam is 2 weeks away from a second ring.
I know.
Playing a prominent role.
It's incredible. You know what? These teams maybe aren't going anywhere, but I'll say this. To get it back to the Raptors, like if you look at this Eastern Conference playoffs, it gives you a lot of hope that you're not that far away. Right? Like if these teams can be winning, like if the Knicks can be that close, you know, it doesn't feel like it's that big a leap to go from sort of being a struggling tanking team to suddenly being in playoff contention and maybe knocking some of these teams off. These are not juggernauts.
No.
I think Tatum being injured, though, was a massive factor in the East, was it not?
Big time, but he's done for next year probably too.
Yeah.
And they may move off Jaylen Brown. Like they're up against it in Boston. And that's why I think, you know, the Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau. He gets he lasts 3 or 4 years everywhere he goes. He runs guys into the ground. He doesn't play his bench much. And
Well, I love that, Hayes. Like, oh, he got fired because he ran everybody into the ground. Isn't that a message that he needs more depth, possibly?
Well, yeah, unless he just won't use. Although I don't think they had depth that wasn't being used. But, you know, you get to Game 6 of the Eastern Final. That's a great year for the Knicks based on their history. But I think it's also kind of a backhanded shot at the Pacers. Right, we beat Boston, thinking, how are we going to pull this off? They beat them, and you can't beat Indiana in a scenario like that.
Yeah,
that's why I think Tibbs.
Well, they blew that game early in the season.
Game 1 was crushing.
Game 1, and they should never lost that game. And
no, they had it.
You can argue that's at least partially on the coach.
Yes,
that's about situational basketball and nursing it home, right? And they didn't do it, and that pretty much was the story of the series.
Yeah, it was.
When you look back.
Yep.
So. Look, the whole thing about overplaying guys, I mean, I don't buy that. I mean, I think Tibbs probably does go a little farther than most, but Nick Nurse was very similar when he was
played like 8 guys in that playoff run, maybe 9. Maybe 9.
You're trying to win. It's not about balancing minutes. It's about trying to win.
Yeah.
And so the whole load management thing, it's a huge discussion around the league. Load management isn't working, right? Like preemptive rest is not working. Guys are still getting hurt.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a better way. There's a lot of science guys on it right now trying to figure it out. There's been a book written that everybody's reading about how you got to change the way you train. You're not, you can't just run up and down. You got to do these specific exercises to protect your knees and protect your ankles and protect all these things that keep popping on these guys, the Achilles and so on. But I mean, that's another debate. But yeah, like it wasn't a great year. Like you saw who led the U.S. at the Olympics last summer. It was Steph and LeBron still.
Yeah.
Right?
And Joel Embiid in the middle of it all somehow.
It was still their team. They still asserted their dominance only last summer.
Yep.
And so, and Golden State, Steph was still really good this year until he got hurt, obviously. But if Golden State if they had slightly different rules, like this new second apron rule that limits your spending, I mean, Golden State would have spent to get Steph back in the finals.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't do it, right? They kind of had some injuries that kind of, put the money they had spent into the wrong spot. So, it's a problem for the league right now, I think, in some ways, because the next stars have yet to emerge. But the only way they can emerge is a stage like this.
They got to play. You got to give them a platform, and that starts on Thursday night. OKC against the Indiana Pacers. Great seeing you, Dave.
Good seeing you.
Thanks for doing this, buddy. We'll catch you up at the Open. There he is, Dave Feschuk from the Toronto Star. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Watermelon sugar high. Watermelon sugar high. Watermelon sugar high.
So we were on Snack last night. We were on Snack at soccer last night.
Yeah.
Did that
How'd it
Karen
go?
come after you?
No, I showed up and it was all good. And
I know, but after the comments.
I know. I was waiting for some sort of an awkward kind of confrontation. I was waiting for someone to come up to me and say, "You think you're smart, don't you?
Oh yeah, I
You
thought
think you're so smart."
I get attacked by the Karens.
I was waiting to get scissor kicked right in the back of the head from somebody saying, "Oh, I heard your little stupid show. You think you're so funny, huh?"
I love that.
Didn't happen, shockingly, but we have now spun the Snacks out of control, where I had to talk to my wife after and said, "You did people dirty," because we went with like these icy kind of things and chips, and we had snacks for all the brothers and sisters.
Oh, just
And
a hero.
my wife's
We're heroes.
My
now.
wife's like, "Who else need?" And I'm like, "You're just killing." Now we're gonna get the other reverse text saying, "Snacks were great, but please relax. You know, like let's just keep it under control here." So we went reverse and flipped into hero mode, and I think now people are probably thinking this was just equally as outrageous.
Yep.
And heroic,
what it is.
and I was talking to my wife after. I'm like, why did we bring? What are we doing? Like,
I have the kids and
know.
the brothers and sisters. That's like going to a birthday party for a kid in Etobicoke when my kids were younger. They would go to this party and come home with a goodie bag that was better than the gift that I gave the kid at
Right.
the party that they were going to.
loot bag, and the loot bag's got $50 worth of stuff in
Yeah.
it.
And cash.
Right. Cash, gift cards.
Dude, I couldn't believe the thank you presents in the Kingsway are better than the gift that I gave every time.
I know.
I'm like, these people are rich and they don't care.
No, I know. I don't know, man. But we spun it out of control last night, and now the whole snack scene.
Yeah.
It's completely out of control.
You might be
Dude,
cut
what's
out of
wrong?
the group
Just-
chat.
We might be. It might be the end of us.
Just
might
go
be the end of
old
me.
school. A case of Coca-Cola, let them guzzle a Coke after soccer, and get 2 giant bins of Timbits and say,
you know
go
what's
at it.
gonna
Timbits
See
can't
it.
miss. You're right about that. They can't
Yeah.
miss, but
But I mean, the Coca-Cola. Somebody. There's health nuts.
yeah,
and
sugar. There's too
and
much. I don't know
That'll
about
get you
that. I
attacked.
don't
That'll
think-
get you
You
attacked by the
remember
Karens,
that?
too.
Remember
Convener.
that orange syrup from McDonald's?
Orange drink. It was the best. Dude, it was the
That might
best.
kill people. No, I don't know.
Every
Like,
training camp. Remember they wheel that big green Gatorade bucket out?
There's a guy who's swirling it
Got
up
his
with
arm
his
in
arm.
It was
Like-
the best was I remember going to skates and you could tell it was warm, and I'm like, this has been here for the whole weekend. Like
Yeah.
it would be a weekend of tryouts, and by the
Yeah.
Sunday night, you're like, no one's changed this over. It's
No,
been sitting
it's been
in
there.
here.
I got to be honest that hockey. That was a couple weeks ago that Quinn's hockey had wrapped up, and there were people filling, like I witnessed it, other teams and stuff filling the water bottles with just the water from the sink of the rink, and the rink was like 1,000 years old. I hadn't seen that in a minute, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, like. I don't even go take a leak in those bathrooms sometimes. It's pretty gritty at some of these rinks here in Toronto.
Yeah.
And there are people like filling the water bottles from.
That's old school, man. I remember that. That was old
Yeah.
school, where you'd just be like, the water bottles, that's what happened. You'd fill,
know.
like sometimes the coach would go in and the trainer start the shower up and just like put the hand up under the shower. And I actually was at a place recently, same thing. They actually had the common sense to say, do not drink the water.
Yes.
So it was out in the kind of middle of nowhere, which means, it wasn't filtered or anything. But
Yeah.
clearly the reason they had to do that was because people were guzzling the water and coming back with like a third ear.
Yeah.
And they're like, can you not drink the water here? And
Yeah.
don't sue us, because this is not for your pleasure here. Yes. Bring your own water bottles or go buy one from the shop. All right, Mike Johnson coming up. Johnny's out in Edmonton. We've got Game 1 of the Cup Final tomorrow night. We've got Confirm or Deny coming up at 5:30. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Hour 2 Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles, McLennan. We're up on YouTube Live on the TSN YouTube channel, iHeartRadio app. You can find us everywhere, man. Mike Johnson coming up here in a moment. Johnny live from the Cup final. I did my 5 legacy builders. If the Oilers win, I've got my 5-pack for the Panthers. We still haven't done, so I can get to that this afternoon. If not tomorrow, right?
Do
Game
it
doesn't
right
start
now.
until tomorrow night. You want me to fire up a 5-pack at 5 p.m.? The 5 p.m. 5-pack?
5 for 5.
Okay, I can do this before we get to Johnny. Is everyone ready?
Yeah.
Is Joe from the Bridge prepared for this? This is wild and wacky stuff, man.
Just off the cuff, eh?
I
don't
feel
mind
like
this.
it's like a top 40, or like the top 5 at 5. Remember they used to do that? Top 6
Oh,
at
yeah.
6.
Yeah. Yeah.
Casey Kasem Hayes.
Casey Kasem Hayes. Tarzan Hayes. Tarzan Hayes.
Tarzan
The
Hayes.
top 5 at 5. All right. If the Panthers win, legacy building opportunity for these players or these
Shoot.
people, not just players. Number 5, I got Brad Marchand. I got Brad Marchand at number 5. This is a guy who has been a perfect fit in Florida, but he has not just been kind of floating through and jumping on
4
board.
goals, 10 assists.
Guy's been a monster. He looks like he's got 3-4 years left in his career, man. Like he looks like he is prepared to be a playoff performer and maybe load manage through the season and just go about his business.
I think he's as good as he's played. It's amazing, and he's added to Florida and everything. I also think he's throwing some cash into his jeans.
Here's another thing.
Yeah.
Team Canada is not out of the realm of possibility next year. I thought he was finished. Like 4 Nations, he was on the 4th line by the end of the tournament. I'm not convinced he makes it, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion he won't. Right? He may be playing himself back on to Canada in 2026, making more money, getting more term. And he obviously won it, played a big role in that, the Boston team. But that was Bergeron and Chara. And
I mean, if they had to
Thomas
pick between a Seth Jarvis and a Konechny and it's a Marchand, maybe they're going with a Marchand.
They might. Big moments, big game. You know he's going to connect with big players. Could be Brad Marchand. I got him at 5. Number 4, I've got Matthew Tkachuk, who is clearly the voice. I know, it's kind of crazy. I got 3 guys ahead of him. Like, he changed everything. There was that video that came out after they won the Eastern Conference, and you saw who did Paul Maurice go to ask about the team picture? Chucky. He goes, Chucky, it's your call. What are we doing? And Tkachuk's running the whole operation. We're going to have the family in here. Let's get the whole staff. Like, they look to him for leadership, clearly. He's the face of the team, the voice of the team. He comes from a legacy name. I got him at 4. At number 3, I actually have the captain, Sasha Barkov. Just won the Selke. The reason I have him there is because, again, I feel like last year it was Tkachuk, it was Bob. I'll get to that momentarily. It was Maurice and his first triumphant win. Barkov, in a weird way, doesn't get enough love, in my opinion.
Yeah,
He's gotten so
underrated,
much
man.
love over the years that it was beyond. Like, he was always known as a superstar that doesn't get enough street cred. And I think he gets the perfect amount of love
He
these days.
probably does, but if you're the captain of a team that goes to the Cup final 3 years in a row and you win it twice, and you're the man, and you're winning Selkies, like this launch, I think you could go as far as to say the Hall of Fame is on the line in the next 2 weeks for him. Like
I think he's going there anyway.
he's probably
Brian.
a lock anyway, but this like defines it. Like you launch into, like how would he be any different or that much different than Jonathan Taves and what he represented? The way he plays the game, like all over the ice, points, defense, Selkies, leadership. You know,
Back-to-back cups do a lot for your legacy.
yes.
And Barkov, he does all of his talking on the ice. I mean, quiet guy. And I don't know if you guys saw online there on the Florida Panthers website how they gave him the Selke, that the Children's Hospital showed up. And
Yeah, very
just
cool.
Unbelievable
Very, very
stuff.
cool.
Very classy.
At number 2, I got Bill Zito. Bill Zito, the GM of the Panthers, the architect of a dynasty or a modern dynasty, a guy who has been hit with the state tax stuff a lot and unfairly in a lot of ways because of, you know, how he got Forsling, how he got Mikkola, what he just did to acquire Jones, how he acquired Marchand just at this trade deadline alone. You know, what he inherited. They won a President's Trophy, and he said, not good enough. We got to we got to go a different direction. He made, maybe the trade of the century, acquiring Matthew Tkachuk, or real close to it. Found Bennett, found Reinhart, signed Verhaeghe, then kept Verhaeghe. Like, I could go on and on and on what this guy's built, what this guy's done. Even Paul Maurice. Andrew Brunette was up. Did he not win the Jack
Coach
Adams?
Of the year. Yeah, he might have won.
Sorry,
Coach
not
of the
good
year
enough. Not going to cut it. Paul Maurice is available. I think that's a guy that can play a style and coach a style and bring a certain attitude that is mandatory in order for us to win. Everything this guy has touched, Bill Zito, has been perfect.
Unbelievable.
Perfect.
And you think of it, Brian, like I'll go a little step further to give some love to our buddy, the ugly face.
Brian McCabe, right in the middle of everything.
Management team has been great. There's
Big
Greg
time.
Campbell. There's Brian
Luongo,
McCabe. There's
Campbell.
Luongo. Yeah, like all of these guys.
Legends.
And Bill Zito's the head of the snake. Don't make no bones about it. But that management team has done an unbelievable job there.
And at number 1, I have Sergei Bobrovsky. I got Bob at 1.
Wow, at number 1.
Well, and here's my reasoning for that is I remember coming in here talking about Vasilevsky, and I said his 3-year run, 3 straight cups, playing every other day, the bubble, the absurdity of the COVID years. I thought maybe he was considered or should be considered the most clutch goaltender of all time, or in the conversation, and certainly one of the all-time great playoff performers. Bob, the last 3 years, has basically matched him, like real close. And he's got 2 Vezinas already. This would be a second cup, 3 cup finals. Like, this guy all of a sudden launches himself into a category where we talk about Brodeur and we talk about Hasek and we talk about Waugh and Belfour and all these other greats. I think Bob becomes like a guy that's in that category, man. Maybe he's a top 10 goaltender of all time.
And we'll have to ask Johnny, but one of the key matchups in this finals, like key matchup, Skinner's been on a heater, but if there's a weak one, we talked about not even the bad game, but Stanley Cup final, that bad goal. Like Bob doesn't give it up.
Doesn't seem to.
It's a killer, and we bring Johnny in too. I think the biggest thing is it wasn't that long ago that Florida was looking to give Bob's contract away. Mm-hmm. It was Alex Lyon that got them into the playoffs down the stretch a couple years ago, and Johnny will speak about
started playing against Boston up until Game 4 or whatever. They're like, screw it, put in Bob, try it. And he hasn't looked back. And he's won 2 Vezinas. And all right, here's Mike Johnson joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Johnny, would you agree or disagree, of all the Florida Panthers, if you look forward 2 weeks, if they win the Cup again, that Bob has the most to gain in terms of his legacy? Would you take Bob? Would you take Barkov, Zito, Tkachuk, Marchand, someone else? Where would you go with that?
Bob doesn't jump off the page to me. You made a compelling case. I kind of, like, oh, maybe. But I think his legacy is largely intact. You know what I mean? Like, I think given what he's accomplished, I just checked, he already is 10th in career wins. I didn't even know he was that high. He'll likely be, coming up on top 5 when it's all said and done. But it feels like to me, maybe it's Paul Maurice, maybe it's Matthew Tkachuk as the ultimate culture definer in the modern game, in this sort of generation. Maybe those guys jump out more because they have more to gain. Like, I don't know if Matthew Tkachuk's a Hall of Famer, but Bobrovsky certainly already is going to be. And so, I think about in those terms, maybe I don't go Bobrovsky, but listen, you make 3 in a row, you win 2 in a row. Anyone who is involved in all that stuff is going to be held in a very high regard for a really long time.
I agree. I think that's the biggest, when you look at it, and O was talking about it, Johnny, like the goaltender matchup. We know sample size for Bobrovsky, but, last year Stuart Skinner, his game got into order, and I don't think when you think the Oilers losing in 7, like Stuart Skinner wasn't the reason they lost Game 7. I didn't love the Reinhart game-winning goal, but it was 2-1. Like, it wasn't like they lost 5-1 and Skinner couldn't get in the way. What do you make of Skinner's run recently, and what does he need to do here in the finals to give them, get them over the hump?
So I heard O say it, and I think O's correct, in that there is a hesitancy to trust that Stuart Skinner won't have an off night. There won't be a game where maybe you think that he might have been the reason why the Oilers have lost. And I think against Florida, given how good the Panthers are, I don't know if Edmonton can afford to play a good game and not win it because their goaltending wasn't up to par. It doesn't feel as risky to say that will happen with Bobrovsky. It feels like if Edmonton might win a game 6-1, but it won't be because Bob was terrible. It'll be because the Panthers were terrible, which can happen. It happened last year in the final. But is it possible that the Oilers could play well and lose 4-1 because Stuart Skinner wasn't up to the task that night? Yes. And I think that's the greatest challenge. If he can play a series where he's never the reason why they lost, he doesn't even have to be the reason why they won, Stuart Skinner, but just don't be the reason why you lost, I think the Edmonton Oilers will win the Stanley Cup. So it's a different sort of pressure, which he hasn't always been able to live up to. Now, he's on a great run right now. He seems to be in a great place mentally and focused, and he put the LA start behind him. But there is probably that slight concern that this series should be close enough that there's not a lot of margin for that kind of off night for a goaltender, because that might be the difference in winning or losing.
With Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst, putting the goaltending aside, where it's clearly an advantage for the Panthers. I mean, it doesn't mean it has to be that way. Maybe Skinner outplays them. That's why you play the games. But on paper, before the series starts, Bob is a better goalie than Skinner.
Yes.
In which other areas do you think it's clear-cut on either side? Do you think the Panthers or the Oilers own any other category you can think of, forward, defense, coach, special teams, where you can say, okay, this team has a definitive advantage in this area?
Well, the Oilers have a definitive advantage in that they have the single greatest offensive player that we've ever seen. And I think that's the difference. And the fact that they're at home right now to start the series is the difference. I think if you look back to last year, when Barkov and McDavid played against each other like 40 minutes, score was 1-1. When McDavid played against Sam Bennett's line, score was 5-1 in favor of McDavid. Like, I think, and maybe you guys can tell me, like, as far as the greatest home ice advantage individual, feels like that's McDavid. Like, if you can get him out there against the wrong people on the other team, and Barkov and Reinhart just finished 1-2 in the Selke. So they're the right people. Florida is uniquely positioned that they have the right people to handle them. But if they don't get to play against them, then it feels like McDavid is the clearest separator, that as good as everyone else is, and obviously Florida's got great players, there is nobody else in this series like him. And if you don't match up properly against him, which will be harder to do when you don't have last change in 4 of the 7 games, again, in a tight series, that might be the difference maker in winning or losing again.
Johnny, were you sniffing around practice today? I saw McDavid skated, but any concerns because he left practice early the other day, and then obviously everyone didn't skate yesterday?
You know what? I'm actually still in Toronto. I'm heading out there right now, so I haven't been out there just yet. But
yeah.
A little bit. I was watching the reports of him on the ice. Apparently today he was also mucking around. He said it was skate related, like he's trying to just finicky with his skates, which ones he wants to wear for the final series. But he seemed to suggest that nothing was bothering him. I think we all will be watching very closely on how he looks, how he plays, how he's used to interpret if there's anything bothering him. Because it'd be a real shame if there is, given how great he is. But he was on the ice. He did practice. He looked fine moving around. So they said much ado about nothing. They said he'll be good to go. And it looks like, from the way he was skating out there, that is going to be the case, which is what you want. I mean, listen, you get a week off. You'd like to have everyone on both teams, other than Zach Hyman, I suppose, something close to 100%, so that it's truly a best-on-best test, and the better team can win.
Johnny, there was a guy on a show that was on the radio, TV, and YouTube yesterday that said the Oilers are going to spank the Panthers. If you heard such talk, what would you make of that comment?
It's bold. It's bold. I think Florida may have an off game, and like they did last year at times, but they are so resilient. And I think we also learned against Toronto. If you go back to the first 2 games against Toronto, where the Leafs, I was in studio with you, where the Leafs were able to break the puck out of the end quickly and transition quickly and catch Florida trying to be so aggressive on the forecheck, which is the one spot they're vulnerable. If you can pass the puck past them while they're coming at you, you will get chances going the other way. that might happen, but I just don't know if can you do it consistently enough to make it a close series, to make it a spanking. No team has shown that they're capable of doing that, and I don't know, even as good as the Oilers are, they're capable of doing that. And then you factor in the goaltenders, which I would trust Bob to steal a game more than I trust maybe Stuart Skinner to steal a game. You think about them down in Florida where they can put Barkov and Reinhart 1-2 in Selke voting up against McDavid. Like, it just seems hard. You can beat Florida, but it seems really, really difficult to see a path where that happens quickly.
Johnny, this is crazy, and I mean, I know the answer, but I want to float it out there. Stuart Skinner has been on a run here. Is there any chance if he has a final?
Don't even stop it.
Conn Smythe.
Jesus.
Conn Smythe.
I'm just saying the Conn Smythe is handed out usually for who's unbelievable in the finals. The body of work, obviously, I get it and all that. I think it's
just
McDavid.
toss it around. A mini Jerry. Stu Skinner wins the Conn
It's very low.
Smythe.
I'm just saying, and this is crazy talk because I think if the Oilers win, I think it's McDavid or Draisaitl. That's the bottom line. Like, McDavid's been driving everything. But if this Stu Skinner just has a series like he did against Dallas, do you even think about it? Would he be Would he be like third in voting?
Mini Jerry. Stu Skinner's unreal in the final.
I mean,
Conn
maybe
Smythe
fourth
for him.
behind Bouchard.
I mean, that's 5%. I mean, he'd have to go on like a 3 shutout run, multiple overtime games. I mean, how many games did Cal Pickard win? 6.
He's 6
won
in a row.
half of the games that got them here. Right? You know, Stu Skinner didn't play half of the games that they won that got them to the final. Now, because the Conn Smythe is not the final MVP. It's the playoff MVP. Now, you're right, Noodles. Everyone's sort of fixated on what happens in the final. What the better mini Jerry is that I'd like to hear O tell me.
Yeah.
Okay, mini Jerry's, what is the chance of McDavid winning the Conn Smythe if the Oilers lose?
Oh.
I don't think it's going to happen 2 years in a row.
Right. Even though he deserves it more than anyone in Florida right now.
I'm going to go 5%.
Oh,
I think it's higher than that, but it would be.
No, it isn't.
It's almost.
Jerry is going to say, you had your fun last year. You didn't win. We're not having a mock. We're not making a mockery of this and giving it to the losing team again.
Yes, and I think he would be mortified, McDavid, to win it again in a losing fashion.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been as good as he was last year, points wise. Like last year, he had 44.
42.
Yeah,
42.
Like he could get there if he has 16 points in the final or whatever, but I think that's unlikely. I mean, I think he falls short, and I don't see it, man. I think it would be Barkov or Bob, probably, maybe Sam Bennett. Like if Bennett scores 5 or 6 goals in the finals and ends up scoring more goals than anybody else in the playoffs, that should be worth something, I would think.
So let's say it goes game 7, super tight, and McDavid gets 10 points in 7 games. That's, something like that. Ends up with 36. And the leading scoring Florida Panthers get 5 points in 7 games, 6 points in 7 games. Then Barkov ends up with 23. 36-23. It's hard to make a case for anyone but on Florida because they are so balanced. It's almost the issue because why they're so good is also why I can't pick anyone. And unless Bob stands on his head, it's hard for me to see, even if Edmonton loses, if the final plays out sort of the way the first 3 rounds did, points-wise and production and everything else, how you could pick a Florida positional player over McDavid or maybe even Draisaitl at this point. It's hard to kind of – But I think you're right. I think they're like, no, we can't give it a second year
to a guy
on a losing team who will have 7 or 8 fewer points than he even had last year when we were sort of gave it to a guy because Jaguar and Hextall and not many guys on losing teams get this award. To do it 2 years in a row would be tough.
Guys, the only mini Jerry that anyone cares about. This year, Jerry hands out the cup and a black Sketcher with a white logo.
Yes.
Because that's his move. That's his move.
That'll be on FanDuel. I guarantee you FanDuel might have
this guy does
not
that. Wear a nice Italian loafer with an expensive suit.
Comfort,
he
man.
goes with a Sketcher loafer, like a Skechers running shoe.
Slip in though, or is it a Skechers
It has to
lace-up?
be, dude.
Dude,
can't
if you
get
see
Skechers without
Jerry,
a
you have to
slip-in.
ask him, are those Skechers slip-ons or just regular Skechers?
You know what? I'll talk to him. He'll come on our set before one of the pre-games, and I'll do a sneak picture for you of the foot.
Dude, if you sneak a pic of Jerry's
situation.
wheels, I don't know what I'll do.
Security's going to chicken wing him out because they're going to be like, this guy's snapping photos under the desk of Jerry.
Yeah.
Like, get him out of there.
Shoe fetish. You got a foot
Jerry.
fetish for Jerry.
Can I smell your shoe, Jerry?
Keep in mind, actually, we should give a happy belated to Gary Bettman. He turned 73 yesterday.
Yes, happy birthday.
So,
There you go. I love it.
At 73, wear the comfort shoes. That's what I
Yes.
say.
I
And
don't
the
think he's
slip-in-
going anywhere either, man.
I
I
don't
think
think
he
so
wants to.
either.
He'll hang
Why?
around till
He's
he's 80.
Corey Perry,
Why
man.
would he?
Yeah.
Think about his last little run, this Four Nations extravaganza. He's got the new television deal in Canada. He's gonna get them back to the Olympics. He's gonna get a new CBA without a stoppage, and then you mix in 2 tidy expansion teams in the next couple of years, and he can just cruise in those Skechers onto the golf course when he's 80 and not have too much stress because he's left the league in a very solid position.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done, and he makes a lot of money. He makes
I know.
8 figures a year.
Wouldn't you want to retire? Like, you're 73. Like,
know.
you've made a
They're
fortune.
just-
Go shut it down.
Well, you're probably addicted to making
He
the
loves
12
it, though.
sheets a year.
No, I get
but-
it. And it's the power, and it's a big, it's a big responsibility, and you're right in the middle of everything.
Shoot 64 or 66.
I don't
Astros.
exactly. He doesn't look like the guy that's playing $100 NASA with his buddies on Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah, I don't know if Jerry's asking for handicaps on the first tee. I don't know if he's dialing in numbers and playing birdie
Quick
games.
game of wolf.
Yeah,
Let's go.
exactly. I'm not sure that's coming or that's happening, but yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
there you
Johnny,
go.
do not snap a picture of his foot and get in trouble
No,
with it.
I don't. I want to keep my
you have
job
to.
in the industry.
Dude, you have to, man.
He's so, I mean, honestly, every time I see him, he always comes up, shakes my hand. We have a little chat and that, stop and chat. He's so, like, he's a great guy
He's
to
lovely.
visit with.
Yeah.
Like,
Very
he
nice.
is.
You guys
He
are
is.
alumni. He loves you guys.
Well,
loves you
I
guys.
mean, Bill Daly, same thing. Like, that whole
Bill's a great
group,
guy. Bill
they
Dale's
all
a
come
really
in
good guy.
together. Coley Campbell, they all come in together. They sit and visit with people. Like, it's a good, and they're at the final. Like, they're shaking hands, kissing babies. Like, this is their bread and butter. Like, and they're always pretty proud of it because usually it's a pretty darn good final. Like, that's
Well, and it's another crazy travel too, right? Like Edmonton to
Yeah.
Florida, man. Like, what is that flight, Johnny?
There is no flight
Okay.
available
Yeah.
from Edmonton to Florida, so you can go through Denver or Chicago, or I'll be connecting through Toronto. I'll fly back to Toronto and then go down to Florida from there. So there is. Hey, so far we were on a charter provided by the NHL last year. We had to stop to refuel
Kansas?
halfway on the way to Edmonton. On the way back from Edmonton, because of the wind, you could make it straight. On the way up to Edmonton, you could not. So it's a monster. It's probably 6.5 hours in the air. So it's like going to London, England from Toronto.
Yeah.
It's that far. So it'll be. That's why there's so many days off, because it's not for the players. It's for us media idiots who it'll take the full day to try to get from one place to the other.
Right.
That's the other thing, too. Remember, I think Florida had a big enough plane. Edmonton didn't. They had to stop for gas.
They were beside us, Noodles, in Idaho. They were like at the same tarmac. I'm like, there's the Oilers plane. They're refueling as well, which seems ludicrous. Just like get a bigger plane. If one can go to Australia, get that one.
Exactly.
Right? Like, get us one that'll take us down.
You want to talk about little things you learned last year? Guaranteed they probably talked to the owner, or the owner is well aware of that and saying, we're getting a bigger plane from Air. I believe there are probably contracts with Air Canada going, give us a bigger plane so we can make it in one flight.
Yeah.
We don't have to stop.
Yeah.
You know?
You can't be stopping at the Conn Air Airport. McDavid's motoring around.
Right.
Dude, we had to do that when we were in Raleigh.
On the tarmac.
That's-
You're like, what is going on right now? This is not the way it should be.
No, you can't have that, man. You can't have it. All right, Johnny. Well, good luck, man. Send us pics, all right? Have a good time out there.
I don't know if I will trust the O-Dog with my pick delivery. That might be, I'll show you in person only.
Okay.
No digital footprint.
All right. That's fine. I wouldn't argue against that, and I wouldn't dispute it. All right.
I only want it if his dress pant is pulled up and you see half a brown sock and half leg. It's the grossest pic. It's the grossest sight of all. Thanks, Johnny.
Cannot happen. I will not do it.
All right.
Show constraint.
boys.
Thank you, Johnny. Mike Johnson joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Drive the built-in Canada fuel-efficient, fun-to-drive Toyota RAV4. Gas or hybrid models available. Visit mapletoyota.com. All right, confirm or deny coming up. CJ will join us in about an hour from the Cup final. We got Mac Hughes coming up as well. Mackenzie Hughes just after 6 o'clock. He'll join us to tee up the RBC Canadian Open, which, of course, begins on Thursday. We're looking forward to that. And apparently Rory's in town, and he's motoring around and doing his thing, shutting down golf courses and probably making serious scratch. And we'll get to our best bets a little bit later this afternoon as well. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050, and on the TSN app.
Back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
I can neither confirm or deny that this is in fact a segment.
Boston trades Andrew Raycroft to Toronto in exchange for the rights to Tuukka Rask.
It's been my honor and a privilege to serve as the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs Hockey Club.
It's time for Confirm or Deny.
Do you regret giving all those gentlemen the no trades or no movement clauses?
Well, I can neither confirm or deny that.
I can't confirm or deny.
All right, confirm or deny. We love it. Couple of these confirm or denies we've kind of discussed at points today, but doesn't mean we can't go back over it again.
No.
Let's begin with the Canadian Open question.
All right.
All right. You guys didn't really answer this earlier. RBC Canadian Open beginning on Thursday up at TPC Toronto. Can't wait to be there. Confirm or deny Rory McIlroy winning the Open would be the best possible outcome for the tournament.
I am totally disagreeing with that. I said earlier that Rory McIlroy is at least on par just because of his fame, his status out there with the people. You saw last year in Hamilton when he walked over to that 11th tee. Like, it was insane, the people that want. He's got the it factor. And coming off the Masters, everyone is going to be drooling over that guy at the Open. But guess what? If he's marching down 18 on Sunday and the guy beside him is Taylor Pendrith,
Yeah.
Canadian. We will shine through.
Pendy,
we will
shout out
shine
Pendy.
through, and we will push Rory aside, and we will be all in on Pendy.
Okay.
By the way, Pendy's playing well right
Dude,
now.
I love Pendy at this tournament. I love Pendy at this tournament.
So do I. He moves his rock off the tee, and he's playing well right now. Watch out for my guy Pendy.
Okay.
I'm going to deny it, too, because I want a Canadian there. What a feeling it has been. You know, like you just the pride, everyone gets involved. There's just a little bit more investment with somebody, you know, that's got skin in the game and is from the area or knows, you know, is Canadian. Like, to me, I that's where I'm leaning. I'm denying it.
Okay.
Rory's a great story, but
Yes.
I want a Canadian there.
Understandable.
And Lawrence Applebaum will be right there with a.
Oh, Lawrence would be right. Although if Rory wins it, he might tackle Rory too on 18 green.
That's true.
Lawrence, he'll be right in the middle of things.
Yeah.
I am going to confirm it. You're going to. I don't know if that's a treasonous comment or not. I will say there's other guys. Like if Shane Lowry won, that would be very cool. Right? That would be very cool. If Ludwig Oberg won this tournament, it's like, all right, Ludwig's coming back. Like a big part of it is where the tournament lines up, who's going to return next year. Max Homa's a great story. You know, Homa, what if he came up and won this tournament? There's other big personalities.
Right.
But there's something about McIlroy, like, you know, the idea that you got to, and he's won this tournament before, clearly, and he continues to say, I'm always going to come back. It's a new course. If he sets the tone for a new course, they're going to be back at Osprey Valley next year. The idea of Rory going out there and kind of setting the tone, I just feel like it's there's something about that superstar power, and he is a superstar. There's no one like him on tour, Scheffler included. Like Scheffler's the best player in the world right now, but the moxie, the aura, the vibe around McIlroy, considering the year he's had already, I don't think you can match what he brings to the table. Confirm or deny, Easton Cowan will play the majority of next season with the Marlies.
I'm gonna deny it. I gotta be positive on this one. I mean, we've seen Mitch go back to junior and dominate and then come back and make the NHL. It is a difficult thing, and there's only one thing left for him to do. And he's a great player. He's got great offensive instincts, but he's got to figure out a way to navigate himself around the ice to have success, because it's the best league in the world. And some guys light up junior and they show up and they just can't figure it out, or it takes them a long time to do it. So once he figures out what he can get away with, and I don't know, the NHL is such a different beast. When I got to the NHL, I thought I had to skate 100 miles an hour, like in the neutral zone. And Andrew Castle sat me down and he goes, "You don't have to. You're just skating yourself out of position." He goes, "It's a great league. It's fast, but you're skating. Like, you just have to figure out how to get yourself around the ice and to get yourself into the same spots you can have success." So once he does that, he should be fine.
Yeah, the only reason I would deny it is just that they want to continue to, you know, not slow play him, allow him his own pathway to be an NHLer. And again, we're not privy to what Brad Treliving's going to do with the roster. If he ends up going, I think the Leafs were the 4th oldest team in the league last year. Now, he might be on the Nick Robertson plan where it's up and down type of thing and all that. Like, that's a guy that I think is quite polarized. Like, I don't know if Nick Robertson's going to be on this team next year.
I'm not sure if he will
Right?
either. Does he? Yeah, it's a good question.
But so I think I want to say I want to confirm it for him to be in the league and be an impactful player and a guy. But I also think that they might just slow play him, and you've got the luxury of him being 20 next year, right? So he can be
Yep.
up and down, right? And without waivers.
Yep.
I kind of feel like he'd be half and half next year, and that's not a bad thing. Like that, it gives him a ton of time in the minors, but also some NHL time and playing. Keep in mind, Chief Craig Berube, coaching him and kind of helping him along. I'm going to deny it.
Okay, I'm thinking the same. I feel like he spends the majority of the season with the Marlies, but his camp is going to be significant. Clearly,
right.
If he has a great camp, remember 2 years ago he had a great camp, started the year with the team before they sent him back. Last year didn't have a great camp, and that probably speaks to what you're saying. Though, like you get there, you start overthinking it.
Right.
I don't know if the hype is greater this time around. I guess we'll find out in September. He's the number one prospect. He can't go back to junior, so that conversation is over. How the Leafs handle him, we'll know their plan based on how they utilize him in camp, right? Like if he's on the 7th line playing with 2 Marley guys, he's not making the team more than likely.
Right.
But if he shows up day one and they put him on a line with players, then it's a different story. But I do think. Like the infusion of youth is important. Like Nye's a young guy, but he's been with the team now for a few years. You guys can speak to it better than I can, but being in a room, they're an older team. Having a young guy who like is chomping at the bit and can't believe he's in the NHL, that kind of energy I think can have some positive effect.
Sure.
So I'm pulling for that story. I think we're past the like developmental blockade. You're rushing him into the NHL. They sent him back to junior. He'll be 20. If he can play, he can play. I don't think you're concerned about rushing him at this point. All right, confirm or deny. Win or lose, Conn and McDavid will win the Conn Smythe.
No, I'm
we
denying
just kind
that.
of established
we
it.
kind of established that where it's like I just don't think they're doing that again.
It's the media that votes, right? But I don't know. I mean, what if he has 15 points in the finals
6
and they
games.
lose exactly but they lose, but the guy ends up with 41, 42 points again, and I don't know. I think the issue here, I'm going to deny it as well, but the issue is who on Florida sticks out. There's such a well-balanced attack. They're all so good. They all perform. They all contribute. Who gets it for Florida? I don't have an answer on that. Probably Bob, maybe Barkov.
Bob. Yeah. I mean,
There's the odds courtesy of FanDuel right now. McDavid's a heavy favorite. Bob is plus 280. Barkov's plus 600. Kachuk, I don't see Kachuk. I don't think he's played well. Like, he's played fine, but he hasn't had some unbelievable playoff run.
keep in mind, like I know Johnny said it's the body of the balance to work in the playoffs. If Matthew Tkachuk has a hat trick one night and is, like I think we all going to be, it's recency bias. And unless it happens like that night, but if it's a game 2 or game 3 and somebody has a hat trick and is a difference maker or has, 5 goals in 5 games, that's who we're going to be talking about. But I think it is McDavid and Draisaitl and Barkov and Bobrovsky. Those are the 4 names that kind of stand out to you. And see who has the best final, and you kind of lean that way. Also, winning, I think, does weigh in on this one. Like it's
yes,
yeah.
I don't want to get to a point where you start hypothesizing like these horrible scenarios for the Oilers, but like it was so heartbreaking for them last year, and then he wins, and remember the awkward conversation about whether or not he should have gone out, should he have picked up the award, what are they doing in the room? Like the idea of having that chat again. Is just it's painful.
How do you even go there? Like, what do you even say?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you've won the Conn Smythe twice, and you've never won the Stanley Cup. It would just be almost an astonishing feat, almost impossible to believe that it could ever happen.
Yeah, there's no and there's no speech. Like, there's no losing it this year. Like, there's no. Wake up right now type nonsense. Like that's one bullet in the chamber. If you have to go to the well again on that one, you got a serious-ass problem. And there's no Zach Hyman speech after saying, guys, we're going to come back. Don't worry. It's almost like you're putting your chips in, man. Because all that other nonsense, it's one in the chamber, and that's it. You only get one shot at those comments.
Keep in mind, I mean, it's realistic. Florida can win this. Like, he could go back-to-back. Like, it's not like, hey, it's just destined, it's his to lose type of thing. Like, this Florida team is serious, and they're good. And they're not going to go, hey, well, McDavid's turn type of thing. Like, if anything, they're going to be chasing him around the ice to try and make life miserable for him and punching him in the face.
They're in it to win it, man. They're 4 wins away from another dream,
Exactly.
And there's guys on the team that didn't, like Seth Jones wasn't there last year. There's a couple other guys.
And, guys like that. To me, it's conceivable he loses, and he'd have to go back to the drawing board. That's the thing. Like it only one team wins every year.
Let me ask you this painful hypothetical: what would be more painful for the Oilers to experience? Up 3-0, but lose in 7, or down 0-3 and lose in 7 again? Which one do you think would just make them sick and
up 3-0?
Yeah.
Well, because down 3-0, Florida, like last year, you could argue, like Bob stole one or maybe both of those games.
First two games in Florida. Yeah,
he was unbelievable, and Edmonton felt they deserved a little bit better, but it was 3 Cobb, and you were chasing it no matter what. You get down 3 Cobb, they're not coming back to win. You can maybe force it to 7, but I just don't think. I don't know if either one of these teams is going to beat each other 4 games in a row. That's the way
it doesn't seem possible. And I do think it would be more difficult to stomach up 3-0 because you're right there.
Yeah, you can taste.
But the idea of it happening again is so far fetched. But that's the conversation we're having. Like McDavid winning the Conn Smythe and the team loses. All right, this is a segue into what we've been talking about here. Confirm or deny, one of the Oilers or the Panthers will be back in the Cup final next season.
Wow. I mean, what did we say last year? Then I felt like we
just
said
got to be one of
year.
the two.
One of the two are back in there next year for a 3rd year in a row. 4th year in a row if it's Florida.
Honestly, if McJesus and Draisaitl are out in the West, how do you deny it? I'm totally horned up about Oil going back.
You think the Oilers are going to match Tampa and then Florida and go to 3 straight? I don't know, man. I'm going to deny it. Florida, I don't think is going to 4 straight. That's the thing. Like, obviously, it's possible. They're so good.
Look at the strength of the East. You got to just say to yourself, we might have a couple matchups that'll cause us problems, but we're going to hand some teams their lunch.
Yep, I get it. But
lunch.
Like 4 in a row, dude. Like, that's the last time that, like, the Islanders did that in the early 80s. It's been 40 years. The Oilers didn't do it. The Penguins didn't do it with Mario. The Red Wings didn't do it. The Avalanche didn't do it. New Jersey didn't do it in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like 4 in a row, it just doesn't seem possible that everything breaks their way again next year, regardless of whether or not they're the best team.
I think we're talking more about Edmonton because you're right. 4 in a row, 3 in a row. Could you see them going back? Yeah, I could, but I could also play the field.
Yeah, I'm denying it, man. This feels like your last chance for both. You got to take advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the bigger thing is McDavid will probably sign this summer, and then they'll retool and use some of that money to move some players out in and out. Like I could see this team being that good again next year. It's more, can you get through these other teams?
That's the thing. Like, it's just getting through the grind. And, like, if you win, are you, kind of fat and happy at that point? Like, all right, we got it, we did it, and you take your foot off the gas?
Maybe.
I don't know. Yeah. Like, it's obviously Florida has proven they're still driven, and maybe Edmonton will do that. But, to your point, there's turnover. There's a lot of different things that come into play just to make a Cup final. These two teams have done it. Like, Florida's done it 3 years in a row. A 4th year in a row, I don't know, man. It doesn't seem possible to me. And Edmonton, I don't know. I'm going to play the field. There's other good teams. It's a crazy sport. It's a tough grind. I'm going to deny it.
You name it, all of that stuff.
I'm going to deny it. All right, Mac Hughes coming up. Mackenzie Hughes will join us in about 20 minutes. Get his take on the golf course, TPC Toronto, and Osprey Valley and get his take on the preparation. And as we move forward, we've got the U.S. Open next week. We've got the Open Championship down the road. Mac always joins us week of the Canadian Open, so we'll catch up with him. CJ coming up as well from the Cup Final. He's in Edmonton. He'll join us in about 45 minutes. We'll get to our best bets, powered by FanDuel as well. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
I'm going to keep this to myself, guys. And I'm not even going to give you the full breakdown and the details.
All right.
And I'm going to put it to bed. But I went on the TPC website, and they offer on every hole a flyover, because you know a golf memory, Hayes. And it's just when you don't keep score and you hadn't played the course a lot, it was like I need to see every hole with my own eyes. And I did a flyover of each individual hole to kick back my memory, and I wrote down every score I got on that hole. It's 62.
62 now.
It's 62.
It keeps getting better
Dude,
now.
I swear to God.
Okay.
I wrote down every score. And
59 watch.
No.
You'll be 59 by
JP,
Friday.
do not blow the horn.
You'll have shot 59 with a hole-in-one, 2 hole-in-ones.
62 Canadian. It was 58 American.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now it's 62.
I did a flyover of every hole, and I'm like, okay, I know exactly what I did on that hole. And I wrote down every score. It's 62, and it's legit, and that's the end of it.
End of it. End of discussion.
We got to get Scotty Lawton and Lorenz on the show and just see what they said, because I would love to be like, you know what, this guy did shoot a 62, but he did disappear for about 2 minutes when, something happened.
Patrick Reed behavior. You have a flyover of you in the woods finding your ball, wink, wink.
Dude, there is an outrageous clip of me and Scotty Lawton made a promise to each other that we were going to get the audio of it, because we were mic'd up for the last couple holes. We said we can't be mic'd up all day. We want to be just talking. Like, we don't want to be just worried about it. Those guys, they didn't want to deal with any nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, fair.
So we got mic'd up for the rink hole, and we got mic'd up for the last hole that we played. And me and Scotty had to take a leak behind a tree. And one of the two of us basically had a half dump in their diaper, and it was on mic.
One of the two of us.
Somebody fly over.
I said to him,
flyover.
we were both crying, laughing, like we were almost falling down in the weeds. And I said to him, I go, Scotty, I have to get that audio of that, just the audio, for me and you in an email, and maybe we'll end up sharing it.
Try to find it, see if we can post it. Why not? Why not? We need it. I need that audio.
But it's put to bed every
hole. Put to bed. 62. It's over. Couple hole-in-ones. I love it.
Yeah. 62.
Yeah, it keeps getting better, Noodles.
No.
Flyover.
I had enough because it was Carlo and Duthie and you guys, and I said, I'm going to go over every hole, and I remember exactly where I was and what I did. I wrote down the 18 scores, and it equals 62, so that's put to bed.
We should go have a GoFundMe, and we can go back, have somebody go back and watch the tape and everything. Like, there is video of it all.
I'll pay someone to go over the video to watch every shot, because it's all on tape. You guys, Hayes, get the tape.
I'll get the tape and I'll review the tape, dude.
Thanks. Do the math.
Do the math. Booker tweeting and saying Kim Jong O'Neill. This guy just keeps getting better every single time you look at the course.
It's so true.
I'm literally, if somebody says, what's the best score, I'm going to say it's 60, because I know that's what I shot.
Okay.
Oh, my
62 at Osprey.
Kim
Jong O'Neill. That's my favorite golf story. Kim Jong-un or whatever shot like 38 the first time he had ever played golf.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had 14 hole-in-ones. Unbelievable. I think this has been coverage of the Canadian Open on OverDrive, brought to you by Subaru. Head to your local Subaru dealer for lease rates from 1.99% for 24 months on select models. See dealer for details. We'll ask Mackenzie Hughes if he thinks he can shoot 62 this week at Osprey Valley, and does he feel like he has to in order to be in contention to win this thing? And he's prepping, right? He's going to the U.S. Open. We got the Open Championship about a month away, just over from there. And, this is going to be a great test, man. It's a great time of year for just great golf courses, championship golf courses. It's an unbelievable field. And it's obviously you have all these Canadians. You got McIlroy, you got Oberg, you've got Lowry, you've got Justin Rose, who's up here. You've got Sam Burns, the Gala. You've got all these different guys, and they're all coming in on heaters, and everyone's ready to go. So it's going to be a blast. You got Luke Clanton, who's going to be there too, right? The amateur, he's coming up, and that's another thing. A lot of guys trying to compete for the Ryder Cup, whether they're Americans or Europeans, and that factors in greatly to what's going on. So it's going to be a great week. We can't wait for it. Mackenzie Hughes will join us in about 10 minutes. Chris Johnston coming up in the next hour as well. We'll get to our best bets powered by FanDuel. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the iHeartRadio app.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Final hour OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Chris Johnston from Edmonton ahead of the Cup final later in the hour. Our best bets coming up. Our boy Mac Hughes will join us here in a moment as well as he prepares for the RBC Canadian Open. And last year was in Hamilton. Obviously, he grew up in that area. This year it's not far from Hamilton. You know, it's up in the Caledon area, but TPC Toronto's never hosted the Canadian Open, so we'll catch up with Mac, get his take on the course, what he makes of it, how he thinks it's going to play, how this tournament sets him up for next week, because everyone's also talking about the U.S. Open and Oakmont and how tough it's going to be. And
yeah, there's horse. It's the usual, man. Like the videos are popping up of the guys dropping balls in the rough, and it's apparently Adam Scott hit every green for 9 holes and was 4 over. Like the horror stories are just everywhere.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like the rough, and you've played Oakmont. Like by all accounts, as tough as a golf course can play.
Dude,
you know,
stupidest greens I've ever, like fastest, trickiest, most difficult greens I've ever played in my life.
Yeah.
Like, I like to see carnage once a year.
I love it, man. I love it at the Open.
Once a year,
yes.
I want you to grind. I want you to have to wedge out sideways.
Me too, man.
And make a 4.
Me too. I have no problem with it. I love the idea of the U.S. Open, the winner being like 1 under par, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the way it should be. It's the toughest test. It's
Miguel Cabrera just ripping darts on 17 fairway, bringing it home to win the U.S. Open.
That's right. That's right. And like Bryson did it at Winged Foot. I think he was 2 or 3 under. I think he was the only guy that was under par.
Yeah, that was fascinating, his approach at Winged Foot, because he just said, I'm still going to mash driver everywhere.
Bomb and gouge.
Yeah, like he didn't value the fairway, which was just interesting because everyone else did.
Well, and we'll see how it applies this week, you know, to TPC Toronto. And a lot of these guys they're prepping for the Open and then the Open Championship in about a month.
You might be able to hand out a few tips, although this James Duthie's really fired up in the
And Duthie is not putting up with any of your garbage.
No, he's a loser. And I'm not dealing with him. So I'll tell you how we settle it. I want the tape. Tape. And someone go through it, other than me, because every shot is on tape. And he keeps talking about a double bogey, and I'm like, you're an idiot. I made 1 bogey the whole day.
I love how Duthie is like the hallway monitor of your golf score.
No, I know. He's like, he made a comment just now in a text chain. He goes, you make Patrick Reed likable. It's like, who are you kidding?
That's harsh, but I like it. I like the way he plays the game, man. JD doesn't mess around. So anyway. We'll catch up with Mac here in a moment and maybe get his take on what he sees coming in the Cup final as well, right? Like I'm seeing SportsCenter hits right now. Masters is out there. CJ, Pierre. We had Chris Johnson, or we have CJ coming up later this hour. We had Mike Johnson join us last hour. And it does feel like a long break now, right? Like now that we're into Tuesday and they haven't played since Friday, it's like, okay, let's get going here. Same thing for the NBA Finals.
They could have fired it up yesterday.
Could you imagine if they waited until Saturday? Like the original plan was Saturday, and like if Dallas won Game 5, I believe it was going to be Saturday.
Yeah, if
you would have lost a lot of people, man. They would have got on with their summer and be like, I don't even know what's going on with. You would have lost. Like we have to do it, and we love doing it. But the casual fan would have checked out and started golfing and doing other stuff and just forgot about it.
Get back out there tomorrow night, man.
Yeah,
Get back out there.
Tomorrow, it's much anticipated, but you're right. If Dallas if this would have gone to a Game 6 and they would have played Saturday, it would have been a full week, so it goes to June 7th. And Florida would have been sitting there for another 3 extra days. So, in the end, I think we're all ready. Like, let's get this going. Enough talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. Like the guys that are injured and can't play, they're not playing.
Yeah.
And other than
how many
that,
double-day breaks are there? Is there 2 of them?
Well, whenever they fly to Florida or Edmonton, right?
The weird one, though, guys, it's the 1 and 2 are there. Then it goes Monday, Thursday next week.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 days off in between in the games in Florida. Then it goes 1 day off between Florida and Edmonton. So you go Thursday, Saturday. And that's what the weird part, because you would think that the second day, it should be Wednesday next week. It's Monday, Thursday in Florida.
Yeah,
so there's
that's
2 days off between games 3 and 4.
That's weird. That's got to be a scheduling issue with the with the rink or something like that. I don't know.
Has to be. There's a concert or something there. There has to be.
Yeah, kick
Monday,
that concert
Thursday's
out, man.
weird.
We got the Cup final here. Like, what are we doing, man?
I know.
Like, you
That's
gotta
weird.
be able to own your building, and it could be a TV issue too. There could be other stuff going on. The NBA finals are playing, and you're trying to avoid that. And I think in the States it's on TNT. Obviously, the NBA Finals is on ABC, which is an ESPN, owned product. So, I guess we'll see. We got Mac Hughes coming up here in a moment. Mac's, I think, going to FaceTime in.
Nice.
But, I saw they're doing, media day out there, and Corey Perry. I love this because a lot of guys his age who have been around forever, they kick the question down the road and say, I'll figure out my future once we're done. I got a young family.
Yeah.
He said, absolutely, I'm playing. Like, it's not up for debate. I don't care what happens in the Cup final. I'm playing next year.
Next year, really?
Yes, next year. He said, I'm playing. So I don't know what his contract status is. I don't believe he's got term left in Edmonton.
No, I think he's done. I think he's an unrestricted free agent. But I don't know if maybe it was about a month ago, you heard Draisaitl say, like, that guy can play till he's 50, but he goes, I don't know if the boots can keep up. He took a shot at him saying, barely can skate type of thing. But
yeah.
I think Perry will play.
He'll be back there. He'll be back there.
He'll play.
Yeah, I would. And if you're Edmonton, why would you not? Like, if you're looking to get to a Cup final, that's the guy that's going to help you basically every single time.
Yeah.
So,
and he doesn't make a ton of money. They can sign him on a league minimum again.
And that's what he'll do. Like, if he wants to stick around, they'll probably say, we'll give you $1 million. Why wouldn't you, man? The guy's still playing. He's still performing.
Yeah.
We'll get to CJ a little bit later in the hour on that and more. We'll get to our best bets coming up. But tomorrow's the Pro-Am up at TPC Toronto, Osprey Valley. And then the first round, it's go time on Thursday, our National Open. And a guy who's been in this tournament many, many times in the past. He'll be in it again this year. Joins us every single year around this time. Here's our main man, Mackenzie Hughes, joining us here on OverDrive. What's happening, Mac?
Hey, what's up, boys?
How we feeling, man? How we feeling for the Open this week? We ready to go or what?
Yeah, we're feeling good. Excited to be here, and obviously first time venue, TPC Toronto at Osprey Valley, and don't have a lot of experience here, but so far what I've seen looks good, and should be a great week.
Well, in terms of preparing for a new course, like we're seeing it with guys, getting to Oakmont and trying to play Oakmont before the U.S. Open next week. You can't really do that with the British Open, I guess. Like, you can't just pop in and play it. How often would you try to get up here to play one of these Canadian Open courses, prior to the tournament actually starting?
Honestly, it's pretty rare if it happens. If I'm up here visiting with family, then maybe I get a chance to go out and pop out to one of these courses ahead of time. But not typically for a Canadian Open. I mean, our schedules are so busy leading up to it that I feel pretty confident that I get somewhere Monday, and by Thursday I'm going to feel pretty good going there, teeing up on Thursday. So not typically going to do that for maybe a Canadian Open. I mean, honestly, even for like Oakmont, I didn't go to Oakmont in advance, and it's one of those things where you're so busy and tied up in what all the other tournaments and trying to compete and do well at those. It's hard to make time to do all these scouting trips. So hadn't been here before, but feel pretty good about the golf course, and it's mostly in front of you. I don't think there's too many tricked up holes, so shouldn't be too hard to get the hang of.
So, Mac, will there be some guys that, like, literally only walk 9 holes in the Pro-Am, and that's all they'll see of the golf course and just give it a rip without seeing the whole thing, or what?
I would think so. I would think there's probably 5 to 10 guys that might roll up and do that. A guy off the top of my head I'm thinking of is like a Cam Young who played qualifier yesterday for the U.S. Open. Did a day with RBC today with me, and I can picture him probably playing 9 holes tomorrow in the Pro-Am. His caddy walks the other 9, and he relies on his caddy for that scouting report of the other 9, and he does his best to kind of manage the golf course from there. So, which is not it's not super uncommon. I mean, that happens from time to time. You get tied up in a busy week, and it's probably better for him to be rested than for him to have walked the other 9. So. A guy like that can definitely get by with someone just kind of pointing him in the right direction. So, and you've played here, O-Dog. I know you're. I think you shot a 64 here on Monday. So
there's a correction, Mac. There's a correction. There's a correction.
It mustn't be too hard because no, I'm just kidding. No, it's, no,
I just want to correct you. I just want to correct you, pal. We did the score
63?
today. I did. No, it was 62. I did a flyover of every hole because these bozos couldn't keep score properly. It was a 62. But anyway.
It'll be 59 by Thursday, Mac. It just keeps getting better every single day. Course record by the time you guys put the tip in the ground. Believe me.
I love it. I love it.
Mac, how do you feed into the energy of playing on home soil throughout the week and maybe leading into the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, when the Canadian guys are home, we feel like we're kind of the crowd favorites, and kind of got a bit of a pretty average pairing this week with a couple of scrubs from Canada as well. So we should have some good crowd support out there, and no, it'll be a lot of fun playing with Nick and Taylor, and we'll definitely have some large galleries, and hopefully making a bunch of birdies to get the crowds going. So I think it's a lot of fun. I mean, we don't get to do it very often where we're kind of crowd favorites. So I think all the guys kind of relish the opportunity.
With Mackenzie Hughes, again, you'll be playing Thursday and Friday with Nick Taylor and Taylor Pendrith up at TPC Toronto. And you're a guy, you're known for your short game. You're known as one of the best putters in the world. When you mentioned trying to learn this course and everything's in front of you, how much of it, though, is you preparing for the greens and trying to get a read on how they roll, how they're set up, where the pins are going to be? Like, take us through your process when it comes to learning the new greens, especially considering how good of a putter you are.
Yeah, I feel like new green complexes on a difficult golf course or a different golf course. Sometimes you don't know where all the best leaves are, and I think that's where you rely on a good caddy to have done some good prep. But obviously, there's going to be learning for everybody here, which is kind of nice. Like, no one here really has a ton of course history, so you're not going back to your yardage book and looking at like past putts or putts you've hit at prior tournaments. It's just a lot of seeing it with your eyes and doing it with feel, and that's kind of where I tend to excel. So I think the fact that there's not much course data or course history here is nice, and like I said, everyone's trying to learn it for the first time, and again, I think that the greens are kind of I don't know, O-Dog kind of attests to this, but like the greens are quite undulating, and they have quite a bit of movement in them. So there's not really tons of straightforward putts, and it should allow a good putter to kind of separate themselves a little bit.
Lots of sideboards, Mac. The only advice I would give is just keep it under the hole, and how that works.
Shut up.
Dude, I swear to God, man. I just keep it under the hole, have some uphill putts, and you'll be dialed in. Next question. Hazy, go ahead.
How would you respond, seriously, if this guy, O-Dog, calls you at 7 o'clock and runs you through the course, runs you through the layout, how he played it? How would you respond to that type of action?
I mean, the guy can shoot 62 around there, or 59 or whatever it was. I mean, he must be pretty good. So he must know his way around there. I mean, again, I get advice from all kinds of people. So I mean, I'm sure I've heard worse.
Oh, I'm sure you have, man. We stumbled across a Round the Green guy a few years ago. I think it was at St. George's.
Dude, they're so drunk and so goofy, man. I don't know how you guys deal with those morons on a daily basis. God, that guy was insane.
The nice thing for you, Jeff, when you played in the NHL, like, I mean, those guys existed. They were in the stands, but you couldn't hear them. We hear all that stuff on a daily basis.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's just got to be insane.
it's not ideal, but we've heard it all now at this point, so it's kind of like you can kind of tune it out.
Yeah, I guess you have to, right? You have to. I mean, ultimately, in the end, you got to go out there and play. But everyone's got 2 cents. Everyone, I should have done this. I missed it long. It's like, all right, well, these guys are professionals out there hacking and whacking. With Mackenzie Hughes.
My wife gets some good ones. She'll be out in the gallery, or my family's out there in the gallery, and you get like a random person beside you, and like they don't know that that's Mackenzie Hughes' wife or his mom or whatever, and some random guy's like, "Oh, what an idiot! Why do you hit it there? I mean, what a shitty shot!" And then meanwhile, it's like my wife or my mom next to him, and they're like, "Hey, shut up!
Yeah,
he's trying his best out there. All right."
Exactly, man. He's just trying. Just leave him alone, please. He's doing his best. He's won on tour. This guy's a professional. In terms of this time of year, once we got obviously the Canadian Open this week, you got the U.S. Open next week, you got the Open Championship coming up. How does this kind of next month and a half rank for you in terms of the schedule on tour?
It's obviously a pretty big one. With this one kind of starting it off, U.S. Open next month. Yeah, I mean it's busy, but also obviously a fun stretch. I mean, we got the Open coming up in was that 5 weeks? So yeah, with the couple of majors, Scottish, all that involved, it's it's big. I'm actually in the midst of this is my 6th tournament in a row right now. U.S. Open's going to be 7. I want a bit of a bender right now, so trying to manage my energy the best I can right now. But it's a busy stretch. It's probably this time of year, almost every year, it seems like we're kind of going through this stretch. It's the Memorial, Canadian Open, U.S. Open Travelers stretch, and then beyond that you've got Scottish, British. So this time of year, it's pretty dense, but lots of great opportunities, lots of cool golf courses to play coming up. I'm excited for Oakmont, excited for Port Rush. So it's gonna be great. We're looking forward to it, and hopefully can get on a nice little run.
Absolutely, man. We're pulling for you, as we always do. You and all the Canadians. It's going to be awesome this week up at TPC Toronto. We're up there tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, so we'll see you when we get up there. Good luck, and as always, we appreciate you doing this.
Hey, just a quick question. Should I tip my Uber driver or not? Is he 5? Is this a 5-star?
Wow, there he is. Hey, look at the champ there, just driving you around.
Right
5 stars, please.
5 stars, man. We thought you were driving, Mac.
A little bit bumpy, but we got here, so.
I love it.
Thanks for being nice to me, boys. Appreciate it.
You got it. Shout out to you and your Uber driver, man. We're pulling for both you guys.
Thanks, boys.
See you, Mac.
I appreciate you having me on. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks,
you got
guys.
it. See you, pal. There's Mackenzie Hughes with Nick Taylor driving him around.
I thought he was driving.
I thought he was for the first half. I'm like, this is going to be trouble.
There's no way this guy's driving through the Billy Goat Hills in Caledon, looking into a camera. I'm like, no way.
Yeah, I was concerned about that. But, no, it was, I guess, him and Nick Taylor, man. Like they said, I guess they were at some RBC event. Was that at Weston? I guess was everyone at Weston? They must have been today.
I'm not sure. I got a bone to pick with Rory. Maybe we can get Rory on this week. You never know.
You never know.
5 minutes. 5 minutes. Power is above us. Help us get Rory
Hook it up, man. Hook it up. He probably used your locker today. Kicked you out of your own place, man.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? Yeah, I'm coming down.
Do you think there was a Christy Pitts transaction in the parking lot after that?
I don't think he's doing anything for free. I think it's it's a good life to be Roy McIlroy. I think all these guys showing up, man. RBC's a massive, obviously, business and bank. They make a fortune, and they invest heavily into the tour.
I love how you started giving him tips, and he was like, all right, let's move it on.
Keep it below the hole. It's like
somebody saying,
just too highly skilled. Me and Nikki Taylor and Mackenzie Hughes.
Yeah,
that's just 3 skilled guys talking shop. That's all that is. And you guys aren't included.
All right.
That's a guy who plays beer league. that when you're going into the finals and you're playing against the Leafs and he leans over the glass and goes, "Oh, you got to try and shoot high blocker on
Chip
Cujo.
and chase,
That's going to,
Chip
and you
and
go,
chase.
thanks, buddy." Like
There's
that's
an old
basically-
saying in sports, fellows. It goes like this: game, respect, game.
Game, respect, game. Game, respect, game, man.
Yeah.
I can't argue against that.
Yeah.
I can't argue against that. All right, best bets coming up later in the hour. We'll head back out to Edmonton, catch up with Chris Johnston, get his take on the Cup final, but also, what else is going on around the league? A lot of rumors coming out of Dallas, right? A lot of people wondering what's going to happen with the Stars. Peter DeBoer, what else could happen there? We'll catch up with CJ, get his take on that and more. Still to come. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Guys, I'm putting this to bed. I know it's the Canadian Open week. And I had this round out there that tour players are talking about. And that some are trying to ruin my name. I'm going to tell you one thing. Someone else is pissed off about all the talk going on behind the scenes. And it's the guy that kept my score, and his name is Scotty Lawton. He might come on today to tell you what the real deal is, because he's pissed off too.
Is he?
Yeah, he sent me a note
angry.
and said, "Oh, dog, this is actually pissing me off too. I kept your score."
Okay.
And it was the most legit thing I've ever done. So I'll explain it to these idiots. And I said, "Thank you very much."
Explain to me why there was an X there on that one.
There's
Why
no
is
explanation, Noodles. There's no
But shouldn't there be a score where there was an X or not?
No, usually that's not kosher for, filling out
Okay, let me
scores
ask you
and-
this guy. Whose scorecard was that?
I have no idea. It was the official
Yeah.
one, I guess, for the tournament.
Really?
I mean, that's evidently.
Well, Duthie got a picture of it
Yeah,
from
Duffy's
somebody.
a journalist.
Yeah, okay.
Duffy's on
Sorry.
the grounds, man.
I-
Duffy's
the
breaking this open like Watergate.
The only reason I was sitting beside Duthie when we were watching it was the Oilers-Dallas game, and he goes, "Hey, take a look at here's the scorecard from
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, "There's an X on this hole."
He was buzzing around the Canadian Screen Awards. He was topping people.
No,
Like,
okay.
and there's
Well,
tracks,
like
like
I
literally.
Said, like I said, there you go. Look at this garbage.
Yeah. That's a different one. Anyway, it doesn't matter. We'll
Yeah.
see if Scott wants to come on. He can.
He's always welcome
He's
on
always
the show.
welcome.
Trust me,
Doors always
he's
open.
upset about it too. He's
Oh,
like,
sure he is.
Yeah. So
Okay.
he'll explain it to you.
All right.
You
See-
can ask him about this mystery X that you
I
guys
will.
claim you saw, because it's so stupid and garbage.
Okay, we will. I will. CJ coming up from the Cup final, and I think with this layoff, obviously there's the anticipation of the games, and everything's been talked to death about who's on the hot seat and who's got the pressure and the X factors, and yet this time of year you can feel the rest of the league starting to kind of bubble over, right? Like there's all these every 5 minutes I see a new tweet. This team's going to spend the most money on Marner, or look for Chicago or Carolina, or don't forget about Utah. Anaheim's going to be in there. By the end of it, there's going to be 20 teams that.
But that's what Mitch wants, doesn't
Of course, that's what he wants. Yes,
Right?
of course. If he wants the most money, what he wants is a bidding war, right?
Right.
But he's also has to have a place in mind where he wants to go, and that's the ultimate answer that you really need. Where
You
do you
think he
want
wants
to play?
go hide in Utah on not a very good team for the next 8 years of his life?
I would hope not, because if that happens, then that, I think, will justify the Maple Leafs decision and it justify the opinion a lot of Leaf fans have that he just, he couldn't step up in the biggest moments. If you go to Anaheim, you go to Utah, that's as far from the bright stage of Toronto and as far from the playoffs as you can get.
I guarantee it wouldn't take long for him to miss it. He's experienced some garbage things with it, just his being at his house and people being offside completely.
Yep.
Away from just being complete idiots. All right.
Yeah.
Nobody ever deserves that, and nobody would ever want to stick around for that. But as far as being a Toronto Maple Leaf and walking around downtown and going into that building on a fall night, on a winter night, I'm telling you, it means a lot more, and it's a lot different. I played in both. I played where you can walk around and not one person says anything, and I've also played here. There will be a point where being Mitch Marner for the Toronto Maple Leafs would be a pretty awesome thing. And it was. But to deal with the other nonsense that he has, I totally understand it if he'd want to leave.
I think it is. I think there's the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Like he's lived it, and he grew up here, and, he played down the road in London. But he's never seen the other side of the fence. He might go to L.A. and love it and go, you know what, like I can play hockey and go to the rink in my shorts and not worry about, because there's other stars in L.A. and you can have a life and live by the beach. And, the grass could be greener on the other side and a very good team, all that type of stuff. I think about it like if he doesn't you want to go out west instead of having to play Toronto a bunch of times? All that type of stuff. There's a lot of different factors. He's got a young family, like a young family, just had a baby. Those, does his wife want to be close to her family? I'm assuming she's an Ontario girl. I don't know anything about their lives.
I believe so, yeah.
I'm sure her family's, there's a lot of different factors that go into this for Mitch Marner and his camp. But that being said, I've talked to guys who have left Toronto and said, you know what, I don't mind being in a market where the light isn't shined as bright.
Mm-hmm.
And other guys are like, yeah, I do miss it because it was great and we had a good team and all that type of stuff. So it depends on where he's at and where his head's at. But I don't think he's just going to go, I'm going to chase $14 million on the most obscure team. He's going to have a huge market for him. And I think he's going to choose where he believes he can try and win and contribute, but also have a quality of life.
Well, it's interesting. FanDuel's odds, plus 450, the shortest odds are him returning to the Leafs. And again, it's just a book. It doesn't have to mean anything, but I don't know. Maybe FanDuel knows something we don't. Here's Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider. How would you respond to that, CJ? The plus 450 Mitch re-signing with the Maple Leafs, shorter odds than anywhere else in the league.
I guess probably, look, I don't know anything about odds making, but I would assume some of the issue with that is just it's hard to identify just one team if you were to leave. If you gave me the field or the Leafs, I would be taking the field in terms of, I do think it's more likely than not that he's signing with one of the other 31 teams. But, I can't sit here and tell you right now, well, it's Team X or Team Y. I think that still has to take shape. And obviously, for Mitch and his family, it's obviously a huge life decision for them. And, as Noodles was mentioning there before I came on, I think he's going to have a lot of different opportunities put in front of him. He's going to have a lot of money put in front of him. And ultimately, he's going to want to go somewhere that he believes he has a chance to win a Stanley Cup as well.
Well, that's it. We're looking at the odds there, and there's a real combination of quality teams like Toronto, like Vegas, Carolina that make the conference final seemingly every year, and then Chicago's in there, and Utah and Anaheim, and it's well, those teams aren't close. Chicago is arguably the worst team in the league. It's a big market.
Probably will be next year too.
Probably will be. Yeah, and I guess that's the question, CJ. How does he marry the two? Money with winning. How do you – because there's not that many teams that can do that, right? That have the amount of cap space, that have the appetite for a guy like Marner, but that are one of the 7 or 8 best teams in the league. I don't know, is it possible a team comes out of nowhere, moves heaven and earth to try to bring them in, and maybe we're not talking about them as suitors right now?
Well, I think the way you do it, ultimately you probably have to prioritize one a little bit higher than the other. Any marquee free agent in Marner's situation is going to get a chance to be greedy in a sense that I think he can demand that it's a good team in an attractive city on a contract that will make him right up there among the league's highest paid players. I do think he can ask for that, but at some point in time he's going to have to decide which is maybe a little bit more important of all those factors. And let's face it, if you're joining a team in one of the tax-free states, if it was a team like the Panthers or Vegas or you go down the list, those teams just don't pay the same amount for their players. It's been proven over a number of contracts and over a number of years here that I think you're not getting the absolute top dollar in terms of the number that gets recorded on the cap sites if you're going to one of those teams. And if you're going to a team that has a chance that's loaded with other frontline players, that team's going to want you to take a little bit of a haircut just to fit you in. The cap is a reality, even in a rising cap environment. That being said, there's other places if Mitch does decide to maybe go to a team that hasn't had the recent run of success, but he sees them positioned over the life of his contract to become a contender. I think in those sorts of scenarios, there's almost a premium in choosing to go to those kind of teams, and he could probably get a little bit more. And I don't know exactly what, when it comes time to make his decision where, his mind is going to land on all these issues. But, I'll tell you, he's going to have some good problems to have here in the next few weeks if he sees this through and hits free agency, because I think he's going to have a lot to consider come July 1.
CJ, before we get to the finals, I just wanted to get your thought on, you were at the press conference when Brad Treliving said the DNA needs to change. How risky would it be in this market? And sometimes it's overstated because you just do what you do and who cares what the market says. But how risky would it be to make those comments and then have a bunch of the same where there's not a lot of change? Like, how did you interpret that comment?
Well, I interpreted it that it's not going to be status quo, right? I mean, so many years prior, and it wasn't Brad Treliving for the most part delivering those kind of press conferences, but whether it was Kyle Dubas or Brendan Shanahan, the Leafs had come out of seasons and talked about sort of the lessons from the playoffs and getting hardened through their experience. What I took from that is that he's going to change the composition of his roster and in a way that makes a meaningful difference. Now, some of that I think is being the decisions being made for them, especially if Mitch Marner chooses to go to market. But obviously, they still have a big call to make on John Tavares, whether they bring him back, and the Leafs are going to have money to spend one way or another this summer, so they're going to have opportunities in free agency and on the trade market to make some changes. So, I guess maybe when we see what the roster ends up being next September, October, we might debate, did they change enough of the composition? Does it amount to a DNA change, or does it feel the same? But, the way I interpreted that comment from Treliving, which was part of his prepared remarks as well. So that was something he thought about. That wasn't just a, sort of spur of the moment thing he said and didn't mean. I mean, it's obviously was part of the message he wanted to deliver. I took from that they look at this string of the way they've lost and some of the things that have happened in the playoffs, and they see a pattern that they don't want to repeat. And so they think that you can't just, bring back the same, and expect a different result. And so, I think it was the sign of a summer that the Leafs expect to be pretty busy in terms of remaking the roster.
Well, speaking of teams that could be busy, you see the teams that have lost and are doing their year-end media. A lot of noise coming out of Dallas, and Rod Brindamore and drawing a blank on the
Eric Tulsky.
Yeah, Tulsky. Sorry, had their media and talking about how they were going to be proactive. Have you been checking in with those markets to see? Because it's certainly a lot of wild speculation of what Dallas would be looking at, and Carolina, said they're going to spend to the cap and try and add more, top tier players. So it's even before we get to the finals, what about those two teams that are making a lot of noise right now?
Yeah, I would say of those conference finalists, I think the Hurricanes are set up to have the more eventful summer of the two, just because they have cap space. I think that they have a burning desire internally to get some star level talent added to their roster. That was the case this season too. That was partly what precipitated the Mikko Rantanen deal. Obviously, they were talking to Vancouver during the year, involved in looking at Elias Pettersson at that time. And so, I think that we've learned, if anything, about the Hurricanes is that they are unafraid to try to shake things up. And so, I think that they're in a great spot to do that. And wouldn't surprise me at all, frankly, if one way they attempt to do it is if they're one of the more aggressive pursuers of Mitch Marner. And we know that they tried to acquire him ahead of the deadline. At that time, Marner didn't want to waive his no movement clause. I don't think he was going to waive it for anywhere, just because he wanted the opportunity to make his own decision to go to free agency and decide where he wants to play come July 1st. But I could definitely see the Hurricanes being one of the teams knocking on his agent's door. So, as for Dallas, they're a little bit more clocked in. They ultimately made the Rantanen deal and then signed him to his new deal, which kicks in the season. They've got a raise coming for Wyatt Johnston, a young player on their roster. They don't have as much flexibility, and I think that's why you're hearing names like the possibility of a Jason Robertson being shipped out, because ultimately, if Dallas wants to change its DNA, so to speak, they're going to have to shed some salary in some way, and because they're a good team, they've been a top team that's been to 3 straight conference finals. I mean, they're probably going to have to look at moving a player they might even like, just to change the composition. They got some older guys like Jamie Benn and Matt Duchene, both UFAs as well there. But I don't think it's as easy, just because it's sort of where they're at in their life cycle and some of the contracts they've handed out to make meaningful change. And they're obviously looking in the mirror and wondering, after 2 straight losses to Edmonton, I mean, how do we get better and to beat the Oilers specifically? How can we, ensure that if we see them again next year in the playoffs for the 3rd straight time, that they're going to find a way to come out on top. And so, it's hard to imagine, I would think, in their front office that it's just going to happen naturally, through the same players maybe rising to the occasion a little bit more, because they were beaten pretty soundly, especially in this year's series, but they were both 5-game series that they lost to Edmonton the last 2 years. And then in this Western Conference in particular final, the Stars barely had a lead, right? They were chasing the whole time. Even when they won game one, they came from behind in the third period to do it. So, it's amazing what pressure teams are in under, around the league. Obviously, we know where the Leafs are at after a second-round series loss. But even in Dallas and Carolina, I mean, there's only one team out of 32 can win each year, and that means a lot of front offices are looking for answers come this time of year when they're watching the Stanley Cup final from afar.
With Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider. So you're back around these two teams again a year later. We know how last year's Cup final played out. Anything feel different to you? If so, what would represent something unique this time around?
What's unique for me, even just the opportunity to see two teams go at it again back-to-back years. Obviously, it did happen, with Pittsburgh and Detroit, 13, 14 years ago, whatever that was. But, it's not something you're ever going to see too often, I don't think. And so, there's a little bit less of the feeling of the unknown about what's going to happen when the game starts tomorrow night. Just because, these teams are familiar with each other and all the stars remain the same. I think the one thing that's a little different this time is I think both teams can credibly say they're deeper. I mean, the Panthers added Brad Marchand. I mean, he's a third-line winger for them. That's probably been Florida's best line on balance through the entire playoffs. And they didn't have him. Obviously, Edmonton has made some changes to its team, and they've been cruising ever since falling behind 2-0 in round one. They've reeled off a 12-2 record from that point in the playoffs. So they haven't been pushed too far other than that stumble they had, right at the start of the playoffs in the first couple of days this year. And so, I expect it to be an incredibly close series. It does feel a little different, maybe just because, there isn't quite the same novelty maybe we've seen in the past. I mean, to me, we're coming back asking the same question: can McDavid get his cup? Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the game's biggest star, and players of his ilk, even though it's the ultimate team sport, tend to find a way to get a team over the finish line. We've seen it with Crosby and Lemieux and Gretzky, obviously, over the years. And so I think it's going to be a heck of a final. But, it feels very familiar, I got to say, being back here in Edmonton. So many of the same players, and it's almost like, wow, where did a year go? That went by quickly.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing. Like, there's so many ebbs and flows over the course of a season. And, like, last off season, there's all these different moves and trades and signings and firings and hirings. And in the end, we're just right back to these two teams, going at it.
There was a lot of stuff that went on in between.
Yep.
It's basically 1,500 games, played in the NHL between them two. And you're right, just back to where we started.
Back to where we started, and yet home ice for Edmonton. That seems very significant this time around.
I think it does, and like I just remember Game 6 here last year. Obviously, Edmonton fell behind 3-0 and then to force it to Game 7. But Game 6 at Rogers Place was insane. Like that might be the loudest building I've ever been in. And I just think that sometimes home ice can be overstated in the playoffs. But I do think it can matter in this circumstance. And for the Oilers especially, like I think the key to playing Florida is not getting behind them. If you can have a lead in the game, it changes what you see from the Panthers. I mean, they're so good at shutting things down once they get ahead. And so, playing at home where you do expect the home team basically in any situation to push off the opening faceoff, to use all the emotion and energy in the air. I mean, if Edmonton can parlay that into getting some leads in these games, I think they've got a much better chance, of course, at ultimately winning the Stanley Cup when everything's said and done. So, that's a not insignificant difference from last year's final, at least on paper. We'll see how it plays out in reality. And I do think the Oilers' level of experience, having been there before, I think it does matter. I mean, they just seem a lot steadier, a lot less excited, and I don't mean that they're not excited about the opportunity, but a lot less, this isn't novel for them. I think it's all business, and they don't want to have another long summer thinking about what could have been.
Oh, that would be sickening to go back-to-back cups and lose both to the same team. I mean, that's on the line, though. It's on the line because
it's there. It's a real possibility.
Florida's that good, man. Like, if Florida wins, no one's surprised at all. I mean, they've been the best team in the league for 3 years. They're built for this. They're wired for this. I think the fact that they brought in Jones and Marchand, and that's like new blood who are real impact players, factor in significantly because, Edmonton, I guess Jake Wallman would be the closest thing to a new piece who's going to play, who plays like big minutes and really can have an impact on the team.
Klingberg?
I guess Klingberg's
been pretty good for them.
Right, but like Marchand was like the man for a couple of different rounds here, and Jones is going to play 20 minutes a night. Like, so is Wallman. Like, Klingberg, I don't think will play as many minutes. But, yeah, it's just kind of interesting that, like, the marquee turnover pieces are both on Florida, in my opinion.
Right. Well, and think of how good a game Jones had in Game 7 in Toronto. I know
unbelievable.
Listen to the
best
show.
player on the ice.
Don't want to remember that night, but he was awesome that night, I thought.
Yeah, he was. All right, CJ, enjoy yourself out there, buddy. We'll do it again soon.
Right on, boys. Have a good one.
There he is, Chris Johnston, joining us here from the Cup final. The Dallas stuff, like, I guess Peter DeBoer's sticking around. I think, didn't their owner come out and say, like, he's such a good coach, what do you want us to do? We're not moving
why
off
would
him.
you? I mean, they made it to the conference final.
I know. He does it every single year in his sleep. He's a great coach.
Yeah.
Great
and
coach.
I'm glad they didn't. Glad they didn't gas him. But there's got to be some damage control there, though. That's for sure. Like, you let this breathe for a little bit, and then I don't know, fly the goalie out, go see the goalie, do whatever you got to do.
Yeah, but in the end, like, the goalie's got to take a look at himself too.
No kidding.
He's a good young goaltender. I think he's got a lot of ability, but he's got them to a certain point as well. Like, he's been the one playing the games. Like, he's got to find another level. Everyone's like, oh, this guy's going to be the number one instead of Hellebuck and all of that type of stuff. These are big pressure games. He's going to be in a big pressure game next year as well in the Olympics if he's the guy.
Yep.
Like, he's got to find a way for another level. So I think there's growth on both sides there, and not growth for Pete DeBoer, but he'll smooth it out. And I think Ottinger's got to take a look at himself and say, I need be a little bit better in certain situations as well.
Absolutely. And, it's a long off season, man. Bygones will be bygones. But you'll get back into the playoffs next year, and that's where you're really going to have to settle in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like, you can meet for beers in July and, hey, everything's great, and, hey, what a season. Ottinger gives up a bad goal in a big game next April. That's when the rubber will hit the road, right? That's when you'll realize, okay, I'm over it. It's all good. I believe in you, or I don't, one way or the other. Best Bets powered by FanDuel coming up. Jays, Phillies tonight. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, best bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I'm on the over tonight, man. The Jays' bats have been alive. I think it continues. Bowden Francis on the mound for the Jays. Unfortunately, I think the Phillies are going to hit and probably produce runs tonight. He hasn't been great this year. So I'm on the over 8.5 total runs tonight. Bryce Harper to record a hit. Alejandro Kirk, who's on fire right now.
Back to being a professional hitter.
He looks brilliant, man. He's so dialed in. He's been dialed in for over a month now. Like, he looks really good behind the plate. And he's hitting. He's really performing well. And Kyle Schwarber, 2+ total bases. He is mashing for the Phillies this year. That parlay paying plus 425. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. The first inning means as much as the ninth when you bet baseball in the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly, 18+, physically located in Ontario. So tomorrow we're going to be up at the RBC Canadian Open. We're going to have our picks for the Canadian Open. We can't wait for that. We're going to see a lot of people up there. We're looking forward to it. And,
sounds like a good setup up there.
I think it's brilliant, man. I think it's brilliant. We're right there. We're up on 14, the rink hole. If anyone's up there over the next few days, pop by and see us. And we're going to get chants going, and everything's going to be great.
62 chants.
If you want to get 62 chants going, I wouldn't say no to it.
Okay. I guess so.
James Duthie is now all of a sudden Columbo. You better watch yourself there.
Yeah, Duthie's coming for you, dude.
Dude, I don't care. Scott Lawton, I hardly know the guy, and he's a man of integrity. And he sent me a DM. He goes, "This is starting to bother me now. I kept your score. You were 32-32. What's everyone's problem?" And I said, "Well, I work with idiots. Sorry."
Duthie is going to ruin your life. Like, Duthie, he is on a warpath right now.
I'll do a 30 for 30 with Duthie. I'll walk the course with him and go through every shot.
That would be amazing if you went through a 30 for 30.
Yeah. Me, Duthie, Scotty Lawton, Stevie Lorenz, and Carlo.
I'll host it. I can host it and just I'll motor around with a big mic boom. We'll have the whole thing, man.
Yeah, you could be like Jack Whitaker in the world's wonderful world of golf.
Yes, black and white. It's got to be black and white.
I love it.
Absolutely. All right, boys. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web, and, of course, up on YouTube Live. You can find every hour of every show up on TSN's YouTube channel. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at...
For all the players competing up at TPC, good luck chasing this week. 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.